How long had it been since he had ended up there? 3 years. Waking up over 3 years ago in a strange place with people that didn't speak his language and all kept looking at him all pitiful. He didn't need to understand them to know that much, at least when they looked at him. Before then, pity wasn't what he had been used to, but he understood the look all the same. It almost got to him as much as the looks of people that tried to deny he existed, almost. With the pity, though, they'd feed him. They understood ramen well enough to get him some of that. Not the good stuff like what Ichiraka would have given him, but hey, whatever. He liked instant well enough anyway. In a matter of hours they got someone that could speak his language, and his face brightened up. Maybe now he'd get some answers. He knew he had been running toward the border of a different country before blacking out and reawakening wherever he was, but he had never heard of any other country in the elemental nations speaking anything other than his own native tongue, and he had definitely never heard of any United States of America. Apparently they had never heard of a Kanahigaku no Sato either, or a Hai no Kuni, or even an elemental nations to boot. They had to wait for 6 hours for Naruto to wake back up after fainting. When he did, they asked him the standard fare as to where he came from, his age, any contacts or family. Naruto didn't trust them, as the last thing he had been doing was chasing Sasuke to the border of Hai no Kuni and fighting him. He loudly demanded to tell him where Sasuke was, as he thought he was somewhere in enemy territory, but was only met with confusion. After 2 weeks, though, they had enough of the young 12-year-old boy and deported him. Deport being a nice word for kicking him out of the country. At the very least, they were kind enough to put him somewhere where he could understand the language. Some place called Japan. He would be their problem from that point forward. He would have normally gone kicking and screaming, fighting all the way, but 2 weeks was long enough for Naruto to find out just how shit out of luck he happened to be. This world was huge, and out of all of the massive land masses recorded on the planet, there was no continent labeled elemental nations on the map, no matter which atlas he was forced to look through to find his home by those keeping him. There was definitely a way home. There had to be. But he hadn't found it yet. Not in 3 years, but it wasn't like he could go anywhere to look for it, because traveling required money, and he was most certainly not with money. But if there was a word that defined Uzumaki Naruto, it certainly wasn't quitter. There that gaijin punk is, dressed in a dark blue school uniform, with a dark blue headband around his forehead emblazoned with a by now beaten-up metal Konoha plate on it. Naruto turned around on a city street sidewalk to find 8 teenagers his age looking at him predatorily, all wearing a uniform of a different color, black. A different school in the area, obviously. "Oh goody, what do you guys want?" Naruto asked, looking them over with his blue eyes, even though he already knew the answer to that. It was the same thing, and it had always been the same thing since middle school. Groups of jerks meant one thing: to kick your ass. The main one, at least Naruto presumed he was the main one, said as he stepped forward. The others followed behind, and the people that had been crowding the sidewalk cleared out upon seeing them try to face off with Naruto. Just because you run Tamagawa Minami High doesn't mean you're the toughest guy in Aohura City. Naruto gave them a deadpan look, sparing a glance at the badge on the of his uniform that did indeed identify him as a student of that school. Says who? Damn it! It had always been like that to an extent since the first day he had first been forced to venture into school by those that had sent him to Japan in the first place. His blue eyes and spiky blonde hair weren't necessarily par the course for citizens of that nation and made him stick out like a sore thumb, not even mentioning the 3 horizontal whisker marks on both of his cheeks. But nothing really went down until Naruto was first asked where he had come from. Naruto had said he came to Japan from America, with a smile adorning his face at the rather innocent question. From the reaction he got when he told worldly knowledgeable adults about his actual factual home, he was definitely not going to do the same to a bunch of kids. Not when he had a second chance among them. Who knew how they take it? Besides, maybe he could make some fast friends this time instead of taking years to do it. This was not the best idea, though. He might as well have told them he was from a place that didn't exist as far as they were concerned, because it might have gone over better. By the end of school that day, a group of boys wanting to show him how things were done tried to strong-arm him and intimidate him. When Naruto didn't cow and they tried to push him around, he proceeded to strong-arm them by kicking the 5 attackers around and going home. From that point forward, he periodically got into fights with every tough guy that had a chip on their shoulder and literally didn't like Naruto's face. By the end of his middle school tenure, he had more or less cleaned his entire school out when it came to kids like that. Then the World Warrior Tournament was broadcast around the world, and every jackass that could throw a punch halfway straight started thinking that they were the second coming of Ryu. Especially in Aohura City. Punks without training that learned of his prowess made his high school experience up until that point one big battle. It was decent training to keep himself in shape anyway. When he got home, if he couldn't have gotten much better, he could have at least kept what skills he had sharp. With that mindset, Naruto calmly looked the lot of them down through squinted eyes as he pulled out a cell phone and quickly dialed the number. Hello, emergency response. I'm at Akakiji intersection and I'm going to need. Naruto trailed off to count the number of his would-be attackers. Enough ambulances for 8 people. Hearing that Naruto was prematurely calling ambulances for them pissed all of the boys off. Thanks a lot. The leader ran forward at Naruto with his fist drawn back to strike him. You're just full of jokes, aren't you, you dash. He was cut off from both his attack and his rant by Naruto's closed phone bouncing off of his forehead hard enough to draw blood, followed by a rising kick planted under the chin that knocked him 10 feet into the air. He floated up into the air, gracefully landing almost fully upside down on the ground on the back of his head, unconscious, with a thud that had the others looking at their leader in abject shock and awe at how quickly he had gone down. Looking up at Naruto, they saw him picking his phone up off of the ground and placing it back into his pocket. We can still beat him. Just take him all at once. Naruto paled at hearing that and ran away down the street, turning into an alley that they chased him down, only for each boy that went inside to come flying back out rather authoritatively, some of them landing in the street and disrupting traffic. The last one standing didn't go into the alley immediately, instead stopping short of going in and pulling out a pocket knife, standing there to wait on Naruto to make his exit instead of charging in after him. Numbers obviously didn't work. You've got to come out sometime, Uzumaki. Let's see how tough you think you are now, huh? After a few seconds, nothing. I can stand here all day. The longer you wait, that's just time for my boys to wake up, and then we all get another shot at you. He noticed the people crowding around but keeping their distance and turned on them. What are you all looking at? You want some too? Rasengan, spiraling sphere. Out of the alley while his opponent's back was turned, Naruto rushed out as quick as a whip and slammed his blue orb of energy right into the teen, sending him flying through a roadside display and out through the other side, crashing against a parallel parked car door and denting it significantly with his frame. Naruto cringed when the sound of the car's alarm started going off and figured he had spent enough time messing with those guys. Walking at a brisk pace, he quickly made to vacate the scene until a sharp clearing of one's throat got him to stop in his tracks. Turning around in fear of it being the owner of the car, Naruto found that it was also someone his age. But his relief faded when he realized who it was and cursed aloud. Dash. I mean, hey Sakura-chan. What's up? He greeted, sheepishly rubbing the back of his neck. Kasagano Sakura. Naruto's first actual friend that he managed to make for better or worse in Japan. Imagine Naruto's surprise when he met someone else named Sakura and then found out that it wasn't that uncommon of a name at all. This Sakura's similarities to the one he knew ended more or less right there though. Instead of pink hair, this Sakura had short brown hair and eyes and wore the uniform for girls of their school, a short blue skirt, a white and blue short-sleeved top with a yellow scarf tied in the front around her neck, a pair of red Converse shoes, and a white headband wrapped around her head. You said we were going to meet up out front after school was over with Naruto, Sakura said with her hands on her hips as she stared the uneasy Naruto down. You haven't trained with me in almost a month, you know. Damn her, ever since she actually met Ryu she was so hard to deal with. Sakura had met Naruto not too long after he had shown up in Japan, and when Naruto had first performed a few of his ninjutsu to win a fight in the schoolyard after classes that had gotten out of hand, she had hastily introduced herself as a fan of fighters and fighting in general. As his friend, she had eased him into the whole experience of living there as best she could in exchange for just hanging around with her and her friends, which he had no problems with. Then came the World Warriors Tournament 2 years ago, and she had caught a glimpse of Ryu on TV. From then she had seemingly reverse-engineered her own fighting style based on the bit she already knew and from what she had scoped out of watching Ryu's fights in the tournament. It was kind of impressive if not a little scary how effective a little initiative and a pretty good training regimen could be for that girl. Sakura pointed at Naruto and shook her head. "You're still doing your ki attacks the wrong way," she said as they proceeded to walk, getting a scowl out of Naruto. Like she knew the first thing that made his attacks work. Rasengan wasn't ki, it was chakra, and it wasn't just a ball of light, it was a pressurized ball of power that was spinning in all directions. You might as well throw a punch the way you use it. "Why don't you just let me teach you the Hadouken, Surge Fist?" Because his name wasn't Ryu and he didn't want to fight like Ryu either. His chakra or ki in this world as it seemed to be called operated under the same premise, and it was just as widely known with certain kinds of people knowing how to use it after very hard training. "Because your Hadouken sucks," was the excuse Naruto used since he was sick of explaining that fact to her. In response though, Sakura thunked Naruto on the head kind of like his Sakura, only he didn't end up eating pavement afterwards. She was nice enough to hold back. "Ow. What? It does suck. You know it does. You can't even throw it 10 feet. Sakura stuck his tongue out at him, getting him to roll his eyes before a grin stuck itself onto their faces. "That's why I want to train with you. My techniques are better when I'm fighting people and you're the best fighter I know. Well, other than him, of course." She finished with a slight blush on her face. "Get Ryu off the brain," Naruto said, poking her in the side of the head with each word uttered, "and I wouldn't say you know him. You met him once, sparred with him, and that's it. It's been a year already, come on now. And the next time you go running all over the world for the summer to look for someone, don't leave me here." He pouted at not getting to go with her. "I didn't have the money for you and me to go," Sakura defended. Last year she had left Aohura City to go find Ryu and ask him to train her the day after school let out. Naruto had to find out when he had dropped by Sakura's house from her mother and little brother. Needless to say, he was quite upset because Aohura was very boring other than the fights he kept getting into. "Speaking of money," Naruto said, changing the subject before he depressed himself with his never-ending quest for funds, "I can't even do anything with you today. Sorry," he added when he saw her perturbed pout. An angry Sakura wasn't good for his health just like the other one. "Go figure, I've got a job today." Hearing that he had a job got Sakura to narrow her eyes at him. "When you say you have only one job for today, that usually means only one thing, Naruto. What does she want from you today?" she asked in an exasperated manner. Who exactly?" Naruto said, looking away, trying to play dumb. "You know Karen hired you to show up again," Sakura remarked with a twitching eye at his cavalier attitude on the matter. "Why can't you just take a different client or something?" she whined, trying to coerce him to shirk his prior engagement to train. The two girls were not particularly fans of each other, and from meeting Karen, Naruto could honestly see a few reasons why. But it wasn't too bad, because she pays better than anyone else in town would for the same work. He said, just thinking about how one job from Karen had Naruto sitting pretty with 4 months of rent paid forward the last time she hired him, and she's never asked me to kill anyone either, so there isn't any reason to ever turn her down. The most he ever did for Karen was beat up a few street toughs that had been caught wolf whistling at her school or pranking the ever-loving hell out of the same people. The hardest thing Karen had ever asked him to do was to courier her last birthday present all the way to Aohura City from a cargo ship in Tokyo. It almost got carjacked on the highways back, but Naruto kept it safe, and he got to drive a completely cherry ride that he would have never afforded himself. "The way you put that, you'd think people ask you to kill others a lot," Sakura said, only being met by silence that explained all she needed to know. "Wait, you don't get asked to kill people?" A shrug met her from Naruto as they started rounding into the neighborhood both lived in. "Sometimes. I never do it though. No one he was ever requested to go after ever gave him a good enough reason to end anyone's life, and Naruto wouldn't kill unless his life were truly on the line. I am a ninja, you know," he said with a saucy grin. "Right. I forgot," Sakura said with a smile. "I never see you do anything ninja-y until you start fighting for real." Wrapping her head around the fact that the fabled assassin's legends from the past spoke of just hung out in the open sometimes was difficult, but she'd seen him. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Most ninja do walk around in public, you know. How else would I have a place to stay in town, or be able to buy groceries if I was just Dash? He moved his fingers in a frantic, mysterious fashion, lurking in the shadows all the time? Yes, Naruto was a very eccentric person and was at times difficult to deal with, but he was a dear friend. He would have been a good friend based sheerly off of the entertainment factor of hanging around with him alone. Yes, because when I think of Uzumaki Naruto, I think of the word lurk. Right behind all of the shouting, the arrogance, and the short temper, Naruto righted himself as his cell phone went off. One SEC Sakura-chan, let me get this. Hello? The two walked and a frown made its way to Naruto's face. I'm almost home, what's the big deal? Silence as he listened to the response and answered back, I got sidetracked on the way back from school and I had to walk anyway. More silence to listen again, and what was said obviously didn't please him. Why does everyone who knows I'm a ninja say that to me? What good would jumping from roofs do if I'm not hiding from anything? Sigh, I'll be there in a minute. He finished in a defeated voice. Watching her friend hang up his phone, Sakura raised an eyebrow at him. Who was that? They rounded a corner and got to Naruto's block to see a rather valuable-looking car sitting outside of his apartment complex. Naruto pointed at it, and saw Sakura's face get a little angry at the sight of it. I'll give you 3 guesses before we get there, he said in a laughing voice as they got closer to the car and the back window rolled down slightly. Hey, what's up, Karen? How's it go, Dash? Front passenger's seat, Uzumaki-san. Only the brown eyes of the person in the back seat could be seen through the slightly cracked, darkened window, and her voice didn't seem like she was very patient. The eyes quickly darted from Naruto to Sakura's glowering form and seemed to twinkle in momentary amusement. Hello, Sakura-san, Kanzuki-san. Sakura replied sharply. At that point Naruto swore he could see lightning fly between the two girls' eyes and decided to play rudimentary peacemaker. Opening the unlocked passenger's door broke the tense deadlock of wills between the girls as Naruto spared Sakura one last wave. I'll see you in school tomorrow. I don't really know how long this'll take, so we can train some other time, I promise. Sakura nodded before returning to glare at Karen, who was doing the same through the crack in her window. Sighing to himself, Naruto sat down in the passenger's seat and buckled himself in next to the driver, a tall skinny man with glasses and a gray suit with white gloves. Naruto knew this man decently enough as Karen's steward Shibazaki. Hey there, Shibazaki-san. The man had little patience for him, and it was best not to tread on the toes of rich people of those that worked for them. Karen was utterly loaded. Do not presume that just because you are heading to the Kanzuki family's manor for your job's briefing it means that my eyes aren't on you, the man said in a matter-of-factly voice. I will be watching you closer than ever now. Naruto held his tongue and sank into his seat. The money was great, so he'd bite his tongue for the time being, especially since his boss was right behind him in the car. Naruto tried to turn his neck around to get a look at Karen, but she hastily put a stop to that. Eyes front, Uzumaki-san. She wasn't even looking at him, as from the inflection of her voice she was still glaring at Sakura, and when he looked out his own window he saw that his schoolmate was doing the same. She averted her glance to look at him, and waved goodbye to him before the car pulled off. XXX, just outside of Aohura City, Kanzuki family estate. Okay, he knew she was rich and that her family was absolutely affluent, but he certainly had not been expecting this. It was obviously why she only chose to see him when paying him for his work. Rumor had it that Karen's family owned a compound that sat on 200 miles of land. Naruto didn't believe that rumor, as he felt it was bullshit, and no one owned that much land in one specific spot. Well, seeing the little bit of land that Karen's family gave her to stay while she chose to attend high school in Aohura City, and the absurdly large mansion that sat on it, he was inclined to give those rumors a little bit more weight now. After parking, Naruto quickly sprang out of the car to look at his current surroundings. It was huge. Running his way out of there would have made for a good workout, so whatever was about to go down had better have been on the level. It was a comfortable temperature outside despite the fact that it was getting on to be summer, and the wait was rather insufferable. Naruto honestly couldn't wait for the month-long break when it was coming up for his own personal reasons. Well, Uzumaki-san, we don't have all day. Apparently Karen caught him staring at the property because she had to get his attention. Naruto turned towards her and began to follow after her and Shibazaki as they walked through the large driveway to get to the front doors. Kanzuki Karen was a shorter girl than him and had blonde hair much like his own, styled into curly ringlets with a blue bow in the back. Her school uniform was completely red, skirt and all right down to her shoes, with some white trim around the collar and the ends of the short sleeves and a blue scarf tied around the front. So Naruto started as he followed them inside and tried not to stop and stare at the rather roomy and ornate digs that accentuated the mansion. I don't want to sound like I'm in a hurry or I don't want whatever this job is, but what do you need? You never told me over the phone, and I'm pretty sure you don't want me to kill someone. If someone in that family wanted to kill someone, it would be Karen's father who ran the family's corporation. He doubted that her father even knew who he was. You usually just flat out tell me what you want, I go do it, and then you meet me to pay me. Karen turned around to face him with her painfully pretty features and smirked at him before flipping her hair and continuing to walk. Shibazaki shot him something of a dirty look before leading him along as well, and Naruto flipped him off behind his back. Don't tell me you didn't enjoy the trip, Karen said as they walked through the mansion. He swore that just one of those rooms could hold his entire apartment 3 times over. I know there's some kind of novelty when people like you see places like this for the first time. While he didn't like the way she said that, she also had a point. The trip was kind of worth seeing all of these things, riding in that car and possibly getting to chow down on some of the rich people food in that mansion. If she were a good host, she'd feed him before he left, and who would he be to turn down such a generous offer from his constant boss? Yeah, but you usually act like even meeting to pay me is a hassle for you, Naruto pointed out, as their previous face-to-face meetings didn't necessarily scream out that she wanted to invite him to her home. Eventually they made their way into a rather large atrium with a garden, a clear amount of sunlight whenever it was available, pillars, and within the pillars a rather large circular stone brick circle. Suddenly Karen held out her hand behind her without turning around, directing Naruto to stop, which he did. She continued to walk forward a ways, probably 20 feet if he had to estimate, and if he hadn't been known for sucking at anything involving numbers, distance, or guessing in school. Shibazaki held up her school bag and opened it to allow her to reach inside. As she did so, she continued speaking to Naruto. Well, there is a very good reason you're here, I can assure you of that. She pulled out a pair of brown 4-ounce gloves and casually put them on with her back turned to her guest. Did you know that I fought Kasugano Sakura before? She didn't need to see him. She could feel in the air that Naruto had tilted his head to the side in a confused manner, eliciting a slight giggle out of her. Yes, I fought her last year right before she went on her little trip without telling you or anyone. I held a tournament and everything. Where were you? So that's why they hated each other. A past catfight between 2 very cute girls, and he had missed it. Where the hell was he when all of this was happening? Probably working out of town. So who won? Naruto asked curiously as he sat cross-legged on the ground in a bored manner. He didn't even know that Karen could fight at all. That was some new and very welcome information. Wait, you had a tournament? Was there prize money? Damn it, he could have gotten himself paid. Dodging all questions, Karen had her own queries she wanted answered. Believe it or not, but I've heard that you Uzumaki Naruto are one of the best fighters in Japan. People don't know who Sakura is, but a lot of people know you by name. I didn't even know who you were until I was told that you didn't enter my little tournament. You were that notable that your presence was missed, and then I found out that you were a local freelancer and hired you for some odd jobs. While he didn't know, or particularly care, he was slightly famous. Naruto's work and never-ending search to find a way home had him work as far out as Sapporo before. That wasn't the point of his focus though. Seriously, you had a tournament? Damn it, I miss everything. Ignoring Naruto's apparent one-track mind, Karen turned around, finally revealing the fighting gloves on her delicate hands. I've also heard that Sakura has never defeated you. That by proxy implies that you are stronger than me, and I hate mere speculation, she said with her hands on her hips as Shibazaki moved far out of the way. So I'm prepared to give you 1.5 million yen dash. Deal, Naruto said, his eyes just seeing the money right then. Maybe now he could fund a wider search for someone with some answers that could help him other than just where he was landlocked to. He didn't even need to think about it. He might have even killed the appropriate person for that much money. I'll give you that much money if you can defeat me cleanly in a one-on-one fight. Right here, right now. That got the money-dreaming grin to drop off of Naruto's face. Wait, you want to fight me right here, right now? I do believe that is what I just said to you, Uzumaki-san. Karen pulled her brown gloves tightly onto her hands, already knowing that she had him at the mere utterance of how much she would give him. But if you lose to me, then you tell me how to defeat Sakura. What? Like he had advice for that? Even now that she had some of Ryu's moves copied to memory, he could still kick her around pretty good. He didn't cognizantly have plans when he fought Sakura, he just fought her and adjusted on the fly. The same way he had always fought. They had never gone all out against one another either. There were just certain attacks that Naruto was never going to use against a friend. Still, he could probably bullshit an answer that would satisfy her even if he did lose. But when Karen found out it was BS when she fought Sakura again, she would never hire him again. But then again, he wasn't going to lose, not just because he believed he'd win, but because for 1,500,000 yen he would damn sure find some way to win even if he was fighting the most famous fighter in the world. You're on, Naruto said, unbuttoning his uniform top and quickly relieving himself of it to reveal a sinewy muscular build when it came to his arms and torso. A tattoo of a Konoha leaf insignia sat on his upper right pectoral muscle as a reminder that he was getting back someday. So what are the rules? Karen was right on top of having rules set for this little encounter. You cannot leave the confines of the stone brick ring or else you will be disqualified. She started with, getting a frown out of Naruto. You cannot attack a downed opponent, no strikes to the eyes or the groin for what it is worth, and we fight until one of us are knocked out of the ring or to the ground for a count of 10. Traditional tournament rules, Uzumaki-san. I know you're a street fighter at heart, but these are the terms. Take them or leave them. Rules. Who fought with rules? He wasn't a prize fighter, even though the notion had taken him every now and again. Rules were tailor-made to keep a good ninja down. Apparently he was going to be abiding by them today, because he nodded in agreement as he dropped his backpack, pulled a pair of cloth hand wraps from his back pockets, and wrapped them around his hands. If he had time to change clothes, he probably would have hopped into something more comfortable for this situation. But opportunity didn't knock that often for him. Let's do this then, Databayo, Naruto said, jumping up and down thrice excitedly before setting himself in what looked like a rudimentary stance for brawlers. A confident look upon her features, Karen set herself into a fighting stance with her left leg and arm out forward, her right leg back, and her right hand held cocked at the ready in a knife hand posture. Shibazaki, you are the referee, and you will be impartial, won't you? She asked, leaving an underlying tone in the air that said he had better call it right down the middle. Of course, Kanzuki-sama, Shibazaki said with a half bow as he stood between them in a referee's position. Are the fighters ready? Naruto nodded with a smile, cracking his neck to the side as he loosened himself up. Karen nodded as well, still smirking in anticipation. Very well. Fight. Never one to take the affirmation to fight lightly, especially since he had been the one issued the challenge. Naruto went right at Karen since he couldn't even leave the ring to confuse her. This left the only other options to flat out put her down or knock her out of the ring. He didn't expect her to duck under his first punch though, nor did he particularly expect her to cartwheel safely right out of the way of his spin kick that he tried when she moved to his side. The girl was nimble. He only fought a dozen or so people that he would readily register as dangerous outside of Sakura since he turned up in Japan, but from sheer reaction alone he'd say that Karen would have to be added to that list. It must have shown on his face too, because her face simply oozed confidence when he faced off with her again. Are you wondering what my style is? He actually hadn't been, but sure, why not? So Naruto just nodded. Kanzukiryu Kakadojutsu. You can't really learn it because it's something I developed myself. Karen pointed to herself haughtily. I'm just better. I don't like handling my own business in a physical sense with those beneath me. That is why I hire you. And you do good work, but you just cannot beat me. For 1,500,000 yen I'll kick Sagat right in his scrot and smile about it. Then I'll kick the shit out of him when he starts something. Don't believe me? Just watch this. Naruto proclaimed brazenly before attempting to attack again. I have to admire your determination though, Karen said until Naruto placed his index and middle fingers in a cross formation, And what exactly is that going to do? I just said you can't poke me in the eyes. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique. Instead of just one Naruto, Karen was now forced to fight 4 of them, while the original Naruto sat back and watched, arms crossed and a smirk on his face. The 4 Narutos and Karen began engaging in a furious flurry of punches and kicks, trading back and forth. Whenever Karen would lash out at one clone, it would block and she would have to contort her body and use her full range of flexibility to avoid corresponding attacks from the other 3 that knew how to coordinate their movements. Naruto, or his clones, landed the first significant strike of the fight, as when Karen found one of her kicks blocked by a Naruto, another one blasted her in the body with one that doubled her over, the other 2 Narutos retaliating in kind, Bunshin Kaiten Kakado Otoshi, clone spinning heel drop. The 2 clones somersaulted at her and landed axe kicks on her head and shoulder, knocking her right to the ground as they dispelled and revealed that the Naruto who had originally blocked her punch was the real one, and he had been fighting her himself all along. Shibazaki looked on stunned. He had been in awe of the Kanzaki Zaibatsu Erisa's combat prowess, fighting evenly against 4 opponents at once, but Naruto had been all 4 of those opponents at once. That was a whole different league of freaky that he wasn't prepared to see. Naruto clearing his throat brought him back to the present, and from the perturbed look on Naruto's face it was clear that he was looking for a count. As Shibazaki actually began counting to 10, Karen stood up off of the ground and got back into her stance. That was rather interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. Naruto grinned at her from the compliment. But just like that, Karen tried to turn the tables and went back in on him. It's not even close to being over yet though. Res Sincho. In a show of blinding speed, Karen dashed forward for a pointed elbow smash intended to crack sternums. She had to have some lion in her because now that it was one-on-one again, her pace seemed to quicken further from just that one move. Naruto blocked the attack with his forearms, and could swear she almost broke one of them before he had to block one of her punches and tried to trap an arm. He yanked her in, but ate a fast trio of chops to the forehead for his trouble that shook him up. Thank goodness for the metal plate. But that was only the beginning of Karen's offensive attack. A fanning, Kanten-looking double-kick combo pressed 2 shots right under Naruto's chin and popped him up into the air. Mujin Kyaku, inexhaustible leg. While Naruto was stuck and prone 10 feet off of the ground, she wasted no time in setting up her next attack, jumping directly at Naruto with her arms drawn in a double sledgehammer motion over and behind her head, glowing somewhat. Kenzukiryu Kouyu-ken. She smashed Naruto down to the ground hard and with enough authority to get a crack out of a few of the bricks, and heard the air easily whoosh out of his body from the strike. Karen stood over Naruto and flipped her curled hair over her shoulder as Shibazaki started the count on Naruto. Looks like there's no money for you, Uzumaki-san, she said, looking at the down Naruto's face, only for her words to register his eyes to pop wide open. She let out a small shriek when Naruto pulled his legs inward toward his chest and kicked up to his feet before cracking his neck and giving her a dry look. How in the world did you stand back up from that, with my legs? Naruto quipped before seeing how close she still was to him, in shock that he got up from one of her strongest attacks. Naruto made the cross seal, and in a puff of smoke Karen was surrounded by several Kage Bunshin that all moved in to kick her into the air from all sides. Zu. Ma. Ki. The original Naruto sprang off of the back of one of his clones to jump into the air over Karen, where he proceeded to finish the combination and kick her to the ground. Uzumaki Naruto Renan. Naruto Uzumaki combo. Karen hit the ground face down, and a worried attendant Shibazaki didn't even bother counting as he rushed in to check up on her while Naruto backed off and poked at his own bruises. Kenzuki-sama. He gasped in pleasant surprise when he saw her move, lifting her head off of the ground to look up at Naruto on her elbows. Thank goodness you're alright. Damn it, Shibazaki, Karen grunted out as she tried to stand up, eventually making it back to her feet. I wasn't done yet. Now you've gone and gotten me disqualified. Naruto blinked when he realized that she had indeed stood back up before a count of 10 seconds, and that in a fight with actual rules this would be the equivalent of someone's corner throwing the towel. That means I won, right? Who? Yada? I won. 1.5 million yen. That's like he started counting on his fingers trying to do some basic calculations. I don't know how many American dollars or euros or whatever, but I'm sure it's more than enough. Almost 15,000 euros and almost 20,000 US dollars and over 12,000 pounds. Naruto stopped celebrating and did comparisons in his head. Damn, that's a steep drop-off. Oh well. It's more than I had already, he said before chuckling in a pleased manner to himself as he grinned and rubbed under his nose. He walked up to Karen and extended his hand. That was a really good scrap. Too bad your butler interfered before we could really cut loose. Shibazaki took offense to being called a butler while Karen looked at Naruto's extended hand like it was an unknown gesture for someone like him to do such a thing. Begrudgingly she reached for his hand and shook it. So now I've lost to 2 people beneath my station. That's simply no good, she said with a frown, adding on the scuffs and light marks of strife marring her pretty face. Fine. I'll take you to the vault later and I'll pay you accordingly per the terms of your victory. But for now, Ishizaki, clang! Naruto fell face first to the ground with swirls in his eyes and a lump on the back of his head. Over him stood a quite large and burly man with gray slacks, a white short-sleeved dress shirt, and an apron. In his hands happened to be a quite dented metal platter. Karen looked at the man and then kneeled down by Naruto's head, poking at his lump several times before looking up at the person who had just hit him. I merely intended for you to bring myself and my opponent some refreshments, Ishizaki. I did not need nor did I wish for you to hit him. My apologies, Kanzuki-sama, Ishizaki said as he bowed to Karen. He stood back up and hid the platter behind his back before coughing to get her attention as she held Naruto's head in her hands, lolling it back and forth as she came to conclude that he was utterly unconscious. Do you wish for me to fetch the young man an ice pack? Or perhaps he requires stitches? XXX. Sometime later, Naruto's apartment. Thank goodness for knowing rich girls like Karen. That was all Naruto had to say as he looked at the large jars of savings he kept in a locked secret compartment in the hardwood floor underneath his bed. Having just made his clones painstakingly count the money, Naruto concluded that over the 3 years he had been in Japan he had managed to save up almost 12 million yen by way of penny pinching and working his ass off every day doing loose mercenary work for most of those 4 years. That was enough to fund a trip around the world if that was what he really wanted to do. Pretty soon, probably by the next year's summer, he'd have enough money to do what he wished. What he had been saving for and living day after day at the start for. To search high and low for any possible way back home. Even after 3 years he still had no idea what happened. One moment he and Sasuke were clashing with their respective techniques, and the next he was in America. But the world was big and the internet and TV, hell even Sakura told him it was full of weird things. Who knew what he would find out there? And he could make his own money on the road if need be. 3 months at the very least was how long a good trip would take. Missing some school would come with it, but he'd fall on that grenade. Yes, what a crying shame to skip some school. A necessary sacrifice it was. He had no idea what he was going to do, where to look, or anything like that, but he was going to keep hope alive. And with that hope in mind, Naruto jumped out of his bed and bit his thumb well enough to draw blood as he started rolling through hand seals, Kuchiyos no Jutsu, summoning technique. Naruto slammed his hand on the ground and in a puff of smoke he waited with bated breath for it to clear out so that he could see if this time he had done it. Maybe this time he had summoned Gamakichi. Or Kami help him, he'd even take Gamatatsu this time. Just anything except. Croak. Naruto dropped his head as he got a sight of just what he had summoned. A regular old, run-of-the-mill swamp toad. Not even a strange color other than what he had seen in the books. No armor, it was just big. Really big. Half his size actually. Yo! Naruto said to the toad that just stared at him with its throat moving in and out. It just sat there doing nothing. Come on. Jump. Spit fire or oil. Pull out a sword or put on some armor. Do something. He poked at the toad with his foot to urge it on. The toad then proceeded to hop right onto Naruto's bed. Swamp slime and all. Great. Because he felt like sleeping on the couch in his living room anyway that night. Good night, Mr. Toad, Naruto said with a sigh as he grabbed his night clothes and headed to the bathroom, forming a half-rammed seal and dismissing the toad back from whence it came. XXX. Later that night, Naruto sat in a flooded boiler room looking inside a great barred gate at the darkness inside of it. He could make out an absolutely towering figure inside, but it was either sleeping or just pretending to in order to ignore and make light of his presence. Nonplussed by his tenant's lack of attention to him, Naruto just sat there and stared before opening his mouth to speak. As he inhaled the slightest breath to begin talking, a great set of claws slammed through the holes in the bars in an attempt to grab him, but they stopped just short of grazing the bangs on his forehead. Staring at the razor-sharp claws in front of his face, Naruto just blinked once before trying again to start a conversation. How did we get here? It was the same song and dance each time he came to converse with the beast for the past 3 years. If he knew the Kyuubi by now, then the next thing it would say would be dash, we could tear this world asunder. Free me from this seal, boy. What happened at the Valley of the End? Why do you try to eke out this meager living of yours? Trying to live in harmony in this town with the people that wish to cause you harm. You fight those foolish enough to challenge you, and that is a start, but you could go so much further. Make them fear you. Give your heart to me, Uzumaki Naruto, succumb to your rage, your hatred, your desire to just make this world you see as a dream disappear. I can do this for you. Let me do this for you. The claws pulled back inside of the cell and Naruto just continued to sit and stare. Yelling at the Kyuubi for 3 straight years didn't solve any problems whatsoever. He didn't even know why he came back in there anymore. Maybe just because it was the only thing he really had to remember his home by. He was sent over to Japan with no weapons, with not even the tattered orange clothes he had on his back in exchange for new ones to last him until he could find his own way. Maybe talking to the Kyuubi, despite its repetitive answers, just so happened to be his way to try and keep his focus. That he would at home, no matter how long it took. Naruto, wake up! XXX. Naruto, wake up! Awaking with a start, Naruto fell out of his sleeping spot on his couch onto the floor, and rubbed his head from the fall. In a white t-shirt and frog-covered boxers, Naruto slogged to his front door and opened it to find Sakura dressed for school. Yo yourself, she said in reply, looking him over and raising an eyebrow. Move your butt to the bathroom and get ready to go. We're going to be late for school again, waiting on you to get ready. Naruto rubbed his sleepy eyes and turned to head back inside with a yawn as he made his way to his room to get his uniform and then to the bathroom to get prepared for the day. You could just go without me. We're not late for another hour. If I don't make you go, then you'd just be wasting your money by not showing up, Sakura said as she leaned against the closed door of his bathroom to wait on him. I can't let my favorite sparring partner fail out of school now, can I? Even if you are a gun for hire, guns are for chumps, Naruto said from the bathroom as he brushed his teeth. And you can find other sparring partners. The city is full of people that I think would probably fight you. Maybe, Sakura said idly, but they're not friends like us. Friends like us, Naruto thought to himself as he finished brushing his teeth and started his shower. Huh? Flashback. 2 years ago. How come you never talk about America, Naruto? Sakura asked Naruto as he was hard at work training in her family's backyard. Sakura was training too, but Naruto was working straight from scratch as he tried to learn how to create his own distance ninjutsu. She noticed Naruto stopping in his use of the ram seal to build his chakra out of his listening to her. You look American and you act American, but you don't tell any stories, nothing. And where did you learn how to fight like a ninja in America? You don't tell anyone anything, and it's been a year. Naruto dropped his ram seal and stopped to look at his year-long friend. He had met a few other cool people, but due to their proximity and the fact that she had reached out to him first, Sakura was most definitely the closest after he got over how weird it was to know another girl named Sakura. Looking at the curious brown-eyed girl, Naruto didn't know what to say. Well, there's not much to say. Is that bad? Sakura just shrugged her shoulders and jumped into a stance to charge up her ki that Naruto had somehow shown her how to tap into when she had asked about it. Okay, here goes. I'm gonna get it this time. Just like Ryu. Hadouken, Surge Fist. She thrust her hands forward with the palms of her hands touching, one vertical and the other upside down. Nothing but a short fizzle of energy was slightly visible, and then nothing. The dejected girl dropped to her knees and let out a desperate sigh. Ah no! Naruto laughed at her a bit, and held out his right hand with a big grin on his face. Hey, Sakura-chan. he said to get her attention before sticking his tongue out to focus on his jutsu, and in a matter of moments formed a one-handed Rasengan. A year of on-again / off-again training to get it down pat, and he certainly pulled it off. Bet you think my stupid Rasengan, spiraling sphere, isn't so lame now, huh? At least I can actually maintain it. You can't even make your move. Sakura stared at the spinning blue orb before coming to her senses and jumping back to her feet to clench her fists at Naruto angrily. You think you're so cool. That's why you look like a cat. A cat? Naruto's focus on maintaining the Rasengan fell along with his jaw as he stared at Sakura in complete and utter surprise. A cat? Really? He tried to look at his own cheeks as he tugged on them. Is it the birthmarks? A gleam came to Sakura's eye as she ran at Naruto and dove at him with a jumping uppercut. I might not be able to do Hadouken, but I can do this. And she wound up hitting the very distracted Naruto right on the chin, knocking him into the air and flat on his butt. How about that? My Shoryuken, Rising Dragon Fist, it sucks! Naruto yelled from his backside, rubbing his chin. You got 3 feet off of the ground max. My vertical leap is 10 feet higher than yours. He stood back up and worked the kinks out of his jaw before smirking at her. But if you want to fight, that's cool with me. He wasn't really going to beat her up. If he ever laid a truly unkind hand on someone like Sakura, he'd never forgive himself. A fight seemed to be just what Sakura wanted as she let out a celebratory jump. Finally, you're fighting me again. It's so much fun having a friend I can spar with. This is great, a friend. Well, that was just alright with Naruto as far as he was concerned. End flashback. And that was when things started turning towards Naruto's direction. Life in a strange place became less strange and far more tolerable. Even fun from time to time as he met a few more people that he got to know one way or another. It definitely could have been worse. But he'd still get home no matter what. He had to find a way. That was what Naruto thought to himself as he stared at his own post-shower reflection in the fogged-up mirror. That he still had to get home. He had a life to live, people to get back to. Come on, Naruto. We've got 20 minutes to get to class, so get dressed and let's go. But what about the life he had here? It wasn't so bad. And what about these people that he knew here? They had their quirks, but they were good people at heart, even if it wasn't outwardly evident in some cases. Karen cough. Would he really just let go and let the past die? Could he let it go? More importantly, did he want to deep down? Finishing putting on his uniform and opening his bathroom door to motion to Sakura to go with a smile pasted on his face, he had to wonder to himself, and wonder he did. All the way to school, all the way through his classes and lunch, all day long. Even if he didn't find a way home, and it was 99.9% possible that he would never do so, why was a part of him feeling like he'd be so comfortable if that were indeed the case? Character profile. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. Nationality: Japan. Gender: male. Age: 15. Birthday: October 10th. Height/weight: 5'8" / 154 pounds. Blood type: B. Likes: ramen of all sorts, pranking certain people, gardening, video games, geography, helping people, American music. Dislikes: vegetables, cats, the delinquents in Aohura City that pick fights with him, the stereotypes for ninja. Hobbies: gardening, working freelance odd jobs for money to pay for school and housing, hustling, playing darts against others for pocket change. Rivals: none at this time, that he considers. Fighting style: ninjutsu / self-developed taijutsu that focuses on his speed advantage over others. When faced with a rare speed disadvantage, clones are used liberally to supplement. Current techniques: Kanai / Shuriken, Kawarimi no Jutsu, Substitution Technique, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Technique, Rasengan, Spiraling Sphere, Kuchios no Jutsu, Summoning Technique, Toads, Uzumaki Naruto Rindan, Naruto Uzumaki Combo, Chakura Tenkisha, Chakra Spitfire. Hyper Techniques: Uzumaki Naruto Mugen Rindan, Naruto Uzumaki Infinite Combo, Odama Rasengan, Great Ball Rasengan, Choikitehu, Super Breath Cannon. Background: the Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifice / demon container, of the Kyubi no Yoko and a Genin-level shinobi of Konohagakure no Sato at last check. Under unknown circumstances he was ripped from his home, and wound up in a strange place with no way back in sight. settled in Japan in Aohura City, where he became a ninja or a mercenary for hire, despite the fact that the bulk of his jobs don't always involve fighting and center more along odd jobs quite often. Is raising money for himself to fund a trip around the world to try and locate anyone or anything that can give him the answers he desires. Has continued to painstakingly train himself and has created more than a few ninjutsu and other fighting techniques from scratch over the course of 3 years. Name: Sakura Kasagano. Nationality: Japan. Gender: female. Age: 15. Birthday: March 15th. Height/weight: 5'2" / 120 pounds. Blood type: AB. Likes: track and field, white rice, baseball, Ryu. Dislikes: math, playing video games with her brother or Naruto because she never wins, when Naruto plays rap music during sparring sessions. Hobbies: practicing English, cooking, playing baseball. Rivals: Karen Kenzuki, Naruto Uzumaki. Friendly, one-sided. Fighting style: imitation of Ryu's fighting style rooted in Ansatsuken. Current techniques: Hadouken, Surge Fist, Shoken, Rising Uppercut, Shunpukyaku, Twirling Gale Kick, Sakura Otoshi, Cherry Blossom Drop. Hyper techniques: Midarzakura, Tumultuous Cherry Blossom, Haru Ichiban, First Spring Storm, Shinkutingyo Hadouken, Vacuum Heavenly Command Surge Fist. Background: a young Japanese high school student with an intense fascination with world-famous fighter Ryu. The first friend of misplaced Naruto found in Aohura City, she began to participate loosely in street fighting after watching the World Warrior Tournament 2 years ago. A very quick and dedicated study, she has reverse-engineered many of the fighting techniques utilized by Ryu in her own fashion after only a few sightings of it, though Naruto constantly teases her due to the fact that they noticeably aren't as strong. Having actually met her idol the previous year, her drive to improve is now stronger than ever. Name: Karen Kenzuki. Nationality: Japan. Gender: female. Age: 15. Birthday: September 15th. Height/weight: 5'3" / 120 pounds. Blood type: surprised face. Likes: Total Victory. Dislikes: Sakura, more or less minds of commoners. Hobbies: coming up with techniques for her own self-made fighting style. Rivals: Sakura Kasagano. Fighting style: Kenzuki Ryukaka Tujutsu. Current techniques: Gyuren Ken, Crimson Lotus Fist, Hosho, Crumbling Palm, Mujin Kyaku, Inexhaustible Leg, Ressen Cho, Ressen Ha, Violent Massacre Break, Yasha Geishi, Juden/Geddon, Arakuma Inisher. Hyper techniques: Kenzuki Ryu Shinpakai Byaku, Kenzuki Ryu Koyu Ken. Background: the heiress of one of the richest families in the world, running the Kenzuki Zaibatsu, Karen is in possession of exorbitant amounts of money and a motto taught to her by her father: all you need is victory. Karen has her own interpretation of the meaning to say, the worst we'll ever be is the best. With her resources, drive, and interest in martial arts, Karen created her own fighting style and is fancied as a rather talented fighter. The rival of Kasagano Sakura, she strives to avenge a humiliating public tournament loss to the girl and prove her superiority. She originally found amusement in hiring Sakura's close friend Uzumaki Naruto for what she believed to be menial work to mess with both her and him, but when Naruto simply took this as normal work instead of as a slight, she continued to legitimately hire him, finding use in him. A proud and somewhat snooty girl due to her upbringing, she is rarely seen without her protective attendant Shibazaki or her kinder butler Ishizaki. The month-long summer vacation had ended and school was back in session, much to the chagrin of the vast majority of students in Aohura City. A loud yawn came from Naruto as he and Sakura sat outside under a tree for the duration of their lunch. Well, Sakura was sitting under the tree. Naruto was sitting in the tree, out of sight of anyone that didn't already know he was there. This more or less only meant Sakura knew he was there, and anyone that wanted to find him would have to come to her first. She'd pretend that she didn't know he was there and would give him whatever message anyone had for him later, all the while Naruto was up in the tree or somewhere high and out of view depending on where they ate, listening to every word only known to her. So maybe he was a ninja after all. A smile came to the aspiring female fighter's face when she saw another girl walking up to her spot under the tree. In between a sip of her juice, Sakura waved at her friend. You took a while getting out here, Kei-chan. Lunch only has 10 minutes left. Chitose was a girl Sakura and Naruto's age that wore the same uniform Sakura did. She had long brown hair and a yellow band in it. Unlike Sakura, she had absolutely no tomboy traits whatsoever. Naruto honestly didn't know how the two were such good friends since Kei was the exact opposite of Sakura. She detested fighting, and unlike Sakura seemed to take in things like boys and clothes. Sakura liked clothes, but the only boy she was interested in, much to Naruto's never-ending annoyance due to having to deal with it, was Ryu. Kei smiled and sat down under the tree, pulling out a bento box in a hurry so that she had time to eat something before time ran out. I just heard a super weird rumor. She looked around while breaking apart a pair of chopsticks. Speaking of which, do you know where Naruto is? It kind of involves him. She knew he was around there close by somewhere, and she could have just said it, and he'd hear it, but it seemed too much like talking about someone behind their back, and doing something like that about a friend wasn't cool. Sakura's eyes drifted upwards momentarily, and the leaves rustled as an upside-down Naruto stuck his head and upper torso out of the leaves, suddenly scaring the rather normal girl when she saw him calmly sipping on a juice box. Yo yourself, Kei said, getting her heart rate back to normal after Naruto's appearance raised it. Man, he was the weirdest American she had ever seen, and it wasn't just a ninja thing either. Why are you in the tree? Naruto stopped drinking and looked around at the two girls below him. Because it's more fun than being on the ground. Kei threw a wrapper at him that bounced off his forehead in response. A small laugh came from Sakura before she turned her attention back to the main topic at hand. So back to whatever you were talking about, Kei-chan. What's the rumor involving Naruto? Is it another high school's punks coming to call him out again? It doesn't matter if it is, Naruto said, narrowing his eyes at Sakura. You never help me when they do. You never need help. Not really the point. Sakura rolled her eyes while Kei shook her head in the negative and continued, it's not a gang this time, thank goodness. It's just one guy really. And he's not demanding that you face him, and he's not out looking for you like everyone else always does. He's in the town plaza breaking bricks, doing demonstrations, and calling you out. He wears a GI and everything. He even threw a Hadouken, Surge Fist, as a demonstration. A fighter with a Hadouken? Sakura got her hopes up immediately upon hearing that. Does that mean that he came back? How long is that person supposed to be in the plaza? Please tell me he's not leaving anytime soon. Ryu was a wanderer for certain, and he wasn't going to hang around anywhere for too long if he didn't have to. It was what made finding him so hard the previous year for the schoolgirl. Kei gave Sakura an amused smile, knowing full well of her noted interest in Ryu, while Naruto made a gagging gesture with his hands. A swat to the shoulder stopped that though. You're in luck then. I heard that the guy said he wasn't leaving a public area until Uzumaki. Naruto stopped hiding in the shadows and came out to face him like a man instead of waiting to attack him from behind like a mouse. Hiding in the shadows? Naruto hated people calling him out and saying that he was ducking them. He most certainly did not. He'd fight anyone face to face even if he knew he was shirking his ninja responsibilities to win without having to resort to head-on fighting. But he hadn't fought any other ninjas so far, so it was cool. I'm in school. Doesn't this guy know that? And just like that, Sakura's expression dropped. Ha, it's not Ryu. First of all, even if he was looking for Naruto, he'd never do anything that brazen to get him to come out, and he definitely wouldn't insult Naruto's fighting style. He'd just look for him. Demonstrations aren't really his thing either. More important things to worry about here, Naruto said, his attention rapidly on Kei at this point and not dealing with Sakura's Ryu deprivation issues. This isn't good. If that guy keeps talking for too long, he's gonna screw with my business. He needed that money. He almost had what he needed to get started, and every little bit helped. He got dry looks from the pair of girls and felt the need to defend himself. Hey, just because you guys are too cheap to hire me for stuff doesn't mean people in this town don't do it either. Kei gave Naruto a deadpan look in between taking bites of her food. Just how many people in Aohura City need a professional ninja? Naruto grinned and pointed to himself. I'm more than just a pair of fists, you know. I do gardening and landscaping, household repair, a little construction here or there, animal care dash. A smirk came to Kei's face at that point. So you're basically saying that you cut grass, you're a cheap source of manpower, you dig ditches, and you walk dogs. Am I wrong about any of that? Naruto turned his back and sat in a gloomy manner, poking his finger into the dirt. D-rank missions pay the bills too, I can't always kick ass. At that point his cell phone went off. getting him to turn back around to the girls as he fished it out of his pocket and flipped it open. Batsu? What do you want? Aren't you in school right now? Ikemanji Batsu. Another one of Naruto's friends, and he was something of a street punk, but that was only by proxy of what he got mixed up in. He had a brawling style, even less polished than Naruto's, but his use of ki to back up his fighting made him one of the most dangerous people Naruto knew. Apparently he had taken instructions from an online ninjutsu combat instruction page to learn his fighting style, and this was eventually how the two of them met, because Batsu was very interested in anything involving a ninja, and Naruto was hiring himself out as a ninja. When they met, Batsu was very underwhelmed by Naruto's presence, and the hot-headed young man apparently let Naruto verbally have it on how he wasn't a ninja and how it was false advertising. Naturally, Naruto took exception to this, and then they fought, and then they wound up friends despite attending different schools. He proceeded to put the phone on speaker so the girls could hear the conversation. It's called lunch retard. But whatever. You hear about the guy downtown talking about you? Yeah. Naruto said with a touch of confusion. You know about it too? How can anyone not know about it? Everyone has to go through that place to go across town, and it's not like the guy's quiet. You should hear some of this stuff. Someone's spoiling for a fight with you. Kami, I'm in high school. Naruto yelled loudly to no one in particular. If someone's going to talk shit, they should at least give me time to get out of class first before they keep saying more. Naruto growled when he heard Batsu chuckle over the line. Stop laughing. If it was you, you'd be all grumpy and pissed too. A friend of mine is coming with me to check this out after school. You're probably going to be there with bells on, aren't you? You'll be seeing me there for sure, Databayo. Naruto said, full of intent at this point. He didn't even want to hear any more about what this guy was saying. Looking at his two friends, he punched his palm. Man, I can't wait for school to let out. XXX. Later that day, downtown, Aohura City Town Plaza. Why are you here? Naruto said in a disenfranchised voice as he, Sakura, and Kei headed within the park where the plaza was located at the center of. Someone had met up with them on the street just as they crossed the street to get into the park itself. The reason for Naruto's, and to an even higher extent Sakura's, feelings on the matter was the fact that it was Karen that had found them and met up with them. Flipping her hair over her shoulder, the blonde heiress responded, well, naturally, you work for me. And if there's some fool out there slighting your good name, he's slighting my own as well. I'm just here to make sure you defend both your honor and my own. You have honor? Sakura quipped with a smirk at the jab on her rival. More than you, copycat. Karen retorted without missing a beat. The copycat jab got a bewildered look from Sakura before she growled at Karen, who continued to goad her. Keep mimicking a real fighter and maybe one of these days someone will believe you actually are one. As fun as a catfight between the two would be, this was neither the time nor the place for one. If you two henhouse hens are finished clucking, could you help me look for Batsu so I can go kick some ass? The two girls continued to glare at each other, but they were silent. Naruto turned towards Kei. Did these two really go at it that hard last year? You should have been here, Naruto. Kei said, remembering that she hadn't really taken Sakura serious as a fighter until she had gone up against Karen in her tournament. Sakura-chan. Sakura heard someone call out to her and broke her glare with Karen to see a girl with a princess-style haircut, colored brown with a white headband on. She had orange wristbands, a blue school uniform skirt and a blue sleeveless vest with a pink bow on over a white short-sleeved shirt, and she was waving at Sakura excitedly, something that Sakura found infectious. Hinata-chan. One more time Naruto felt a stab at the memory portion of his brain due to the name. But once again the name did not fit the person he had originally placed it with. Wakaba Hinata was nothing like the Hinata from Naruto's time in Konoha in more than just appearance. As one of Sakura's best friends that went to another school, Naruto knew her fairly well. This girl liked fighting and was very energetic. How she was trained, Naruto had no idea, and Sakura's explanations were very vague. Naruto was starting to think that too many people knew how to fight for his own good, and it was his fault for living there. Hinata ran over to Sakura and the two squealed and hugged, annoying Karen at the display of affection before Hinata turned around and motioned back to where she had run from. Come on, Batsu. You're so slow. I found Naruto-san, and look! Sakura-chan and Kei-chan are here with him. She spared a look at Karen and stared for a moment before blinking her big brown eyes. I don't know you, she said brightly, getting Karen to cross her arms and roll her eyes. From the wall of people that had formed a crowd ahead of them, out walked Batsu with his hands in his light blue school uniform's pockets, smirking at Naruto with his short, spiky dark hair and dark eyes. Well, look what the cat dragged in. You finally came out of hiding, Naruto? He said with a chuckle. You've seriously got to get a load of this guy. He saw Naruto's face and chuckled again. You're mad now, but you really won't be when you see him, I guarantee it. He motioned for Naruto to follow him, while Sakura, Kei, and Hinata chattered. With no one really she wished to be around out of the girls to talk to, Karen went to follow Naruto and Batsu through the crowd, though doing such irked her to push her way through the commoners. At the front of the thick wall of people by an ornate fountain, Naruto and Batsu stopped, one smirking and the other just gawking at what they were seeing. Karen was quick to catch up, and even she placed a hand by her mouth to laugh a bit when she saw what the other two did. Being observed by the crowd was a man with long brown hair tied into a ponytail and sideburns, a traditional karate gi and 4 ounces gloves on, wearing a black undershirt underneath his gi. The thing about the gi and the gloves was the fact that they were bright pink. After breaking a stack of bricks to the applause of the crowd, the man began picking up photos of himself from a stack that he had and started quickly signing them and handing them out to everyone at the front of the crowd. Yes, and now you can see the strength of Saikyoryu, the strongest style. I can see how many of you are interested in learning my self-made devastating art. You love it. I can see it in your eyes. And since you all do, I'll give all of you here a 50% discount at my dojo. Just 33.95 yen a month. Apply now and you'll get a free Hibiki Dan imitation GI t-shirt. Naruto and Karen's eyes twitched at the man's display and the people applauding him. He only broke like 4 bricks. Naruto said in disbelief at how popular the man seemed to be as people seemed to be cheering him on. Strongest style, Karen said to herself, thinking along the same lines as Naruto. What a gaudy name. She watched him do the same again with overdramatic effect added. This is not a demonstration. It is just a promotional spot for this degrading fighting style. She turned to Naruto and spoke directly to him. He just wants to fight you to get his fighting style popular around here. See what I mean? Batsu said, elbowing Naruto in the side. You aren't even mad anymore, are you? I was about to go out and nip this clown in the bud after all of the stuff I'd been hearing from a girl in school about you all day. But I saw this guy and figured you'd want to do it yourself. He then gave Naruto a pat on the back, hard enough to knock him from the crowd. Go get him, team. Naruto stumbled out and turned back to glare slightly at Batsu before shrugging. There wasn't any reason to be mad. He was going to do it soon enough anyway. The man caught sight of Naruto stumbling out from the crowd and a gleam came to his eye as he walked over to Naruto and threw an arm around his shoulder. So you're brave enough to approach me yourself to declare yourself my disciple, are you? Well, never fear. I never turn away a student as long as their check's clear. He turned and displayed Naruto to the whole crowd. And you too can be a powerful and respected fighter the way this young man will after training in my Saikyoryu style. Just wait until Uzumaki Naruto gets here. He'll bow to the combat prowess of my skills firsthand. And there was his opening. Naruto smirked and slipped out of the man's grasp. But I am Uzumaki Naruto, he said, watching the sheer confidence on the man's face turn to confusion and then to skepticism. What's with that face? No way you're Uzumaki Naruto. The pink-clad fighter said, pointing at Naruto in an overly accusing manner. My sweet little cousin Ran told me that Uzumaki Naruto was the #1 consensus most dangerous man in Aohura City and the whole Chugoku region. People know that name from here all the way to Chiba. There's no way in hell that the most dangerous in the west half of Japan is a kid. Ranbatsu knew that name. You mean Hibiki Ran? Freshman? Always has a camera with her. Nosy as hell? He asked the man as he stayed in the crowd with Karen. If it was the same Ran, then he went to school with that girl. He could see the resemblance in more than one way because they acted alike too. Yes, the man said before bursting into dramatic tears cascading down his face. That's my baby cousin. Such a dear girl. She gave me this scoop on Uzumaki Naruto, And even took all of these pictures of me for my soon-to-be dojo's publicity. Batsu blocked a laugh with a snort and pointed out at Naruto, who was standing, tapping his foot impatiently. Well, I hate to break it to you, but Rant's never seen Naruto before. That's really Uzumaki Naruto. Right there. The crowd, those of which had seen Naruto in the past, began speaking up as well about how that was indeed Naruto. Rolling his eyes at the gobsmacked look on his would-be opponent's face, Naruto began unbuttoning his uniform top, taking it off in favor of the white t-shirt he had on underneath it as he tied the uniform top around his waist. So I heard you've been looking for me. Who are you anyway? That seemed to set the man off, putting a tick mark on his head. You haven't heard of me? What, have you been living under a rock or something, kid? I'm Hibiki Dan, world-renowned fighter extraordinaire. Who? Naruto said, squinting his eyes at Dan and scratching his head. Dan stomped his bare foot on the ground repeatedly in something of a little tantrum. How don't you know who I am? I just beat Sagat last year. You can't tell me you didn't hear about that. Naruto, Karen, and Batsu all face-faulted on the ground before standing up and shouting at the same time, You beat Sagat? The last man perceived as the very best fighter in the world. Sagat was called the god of Muay Thai and went unbeaten for over 20 years since winning his title as a teenager. He lost in the final battle of the World Warrior Tournament to Ryu, but that was Ryu and Naruto had seen him fight. Both of them. Sagat was a monster of a man, and the most talented hand-to-hand fighter he had ever seen. Ryu somehow beat him, and Naruto didn't even want to feel like he was taking this Dan guy seriously. That is absurd. Karen exclaimed in complete disbelief, shaking her head and her blonde, curly locks around only for everyone in the crowd besides them to nod. Really? This man defeated Sagat? The Sagat? Batsu had his phone out and was checking on the internet at that very moment before his beady black eyes went wide. I'm checking the site where they track fighters and their recorded street fighting wins and losses, and it's true. This guy has a win recorded over Sagat. He held up his phone to actually show the list of recorded fights Dan had. Honestly, if one were to overlook the win he had over Sagat, it would be kind of pathetic. It was the only name win that he really had, and this site is noted for being the most factual out of them all. No rumor-centered stories, only hard evidence. And now I'm traveling around showing the world how great my technique is. Dan asserted, proudly pointing to himself with his thumb, the technique that was good enough to get me a victory over the god of Muay Thai. And you're next, Uzumaki. A legend like myself can't overlook the up-and-comers either. Yeah, dude, Batsu interjected again in order to address Naruto, tapping away on his phone to do a bit more research. You're ranked. In Japan, you're ranked as the number 74 best fighter of the country out of top 100. That utterly confused Naruto. Wait, I'm ranked? I don't prize fight. I'm a street fighter at best. A shrug came from Batsu. What do you want me to say? You're ranked. They even have your recorded win-losses against other people in here. Apparently more than a few people that you beat up had some kind of notoriety somewhere. They even have your wins over this girl right here, me, Sakura, and others from around here. You've fought almost everyone worth a damn in Aohura City by now for one reason or another. How in the hell did they get any of those things? Naruto shouted, feeling that his privacy had been quite invaded. He never told anyone that he had beaten anyone other than those that were his friends, and that was only whenever the topic came up. Everybody's got a phone with a video camera, a regular camera, or at least internet access these days, dumbass. Batsu said, having no patience for the fact that Naruto was a technological invalid for the most part. It's not that much of a stretch that not only someone knows you beat somebody, but 4 out of 5 times if you did it in public there's probably a video of it somewhere. Have you ever Googled you? Maybe we should try it later. Karen tapped her chin and thought over the ranking after first disputing with herself why herself or Sakura hadn't been in the top 100 despite winning her own share of street fights and getting to the finals of her tournament last year. That actually does make sense though. You dogo everywhere in Japan. And with Naruto's luck he probably beat up more than his share of people as well, even when he didn't have jobs that involved it. Naruto's luck usually revolved around violence of some sort. But no matter who this person had beaten, he had still called Naruto out, and Naruto was ready and raring to go, bouncing on his toes to limber up and prepare. Dan likewise set himself into a fighting stance that looked like Ryu's, only looser. I hope you're ready for a beating, kid. Chuckle, you're gonna need an extra 6-pack of courage to step up to me, Dadabayo. Naruto said in reply as he set himself into a fighting stance to prepare for Dan. You called me out, so you can tell me when to start. Fight. Dan said before running right at Naruto, screeching with an obnoxious battle cry. It threw Naruto off guard for a moment before he realized that they never made rules, which obviously meant that there were no rules. Around Naruto's left wrist was a small sleeve-like band that held shuriken on the wide sides of his wrist. It was usually concealed by his jacket, but not today. He quickly grabbed a shuriken from the pouch in it and threw it right at Dan, expecting him to dodge it and preparing to go with. However, Dan moved to evade. Dan did not evade. The shuriken hit Dan right in the upper right chest and stopped his attack run right in his tracks as he grabbed at the metal throwing star and started instantly whining. Gah! Did you just throw a ninja star at me? Oh! Who does that? A ninja? Both Karen and Batsu deadpanned. Dan poked at the shuriken several times, flinching in pain and choosing not to pull it out himself before looking back over at Naruto. Hey! Who told you that you could use weapons? Naruto looked around vacantly before shrugging. Who told me that I couldn't use weapons? Now stop whining and fight me already. That's it, kid, Dan said, flexing and trying to be threatening to Naruto and failing miserably. You're asking for the thunder? Well, Dan is bringing it right to you. Dan Kukyaku, severing air leg. Dan rushed at Naruto and jumped at him, delivering a knee strike that was blocked, followed by a long kick with the opposite leg that was also stopped, and a final kick that sent Naruto stumbling back despite the fact that it registered no injury on Naruto's person due to the guard of the young blonde. After Dan landed, he turned and posed to the crowd. Yeah. Feel the power. How'd you like that, Ki-dash? He turned around to face Naruto again only to get socked right in the face hard enough to spin back towards the fountain like a top, being stopped by the stone rim of said fountain keeping him from falling into the water. Dan cracked his jaw and spit some blood out of his mouth. Hey! I had my back turned. Naruto stomped his foot tantrum style. I don't care. You beat Sagat, didn't you? Take me seriously and fight me like you fought him, or I'm going to kick your teeth down your throat. Don't underestimate me. I might be a kid, but that doesn't mean anything. Standing back up off of the fountain, Dan narrowed his eyes at Naruto and started channeling visible ki to his right hand. All right, Junior. You asked for it, and you're right. If I don't go all out, how else will anyone know that my style is the best? It works two ways for me to fight you properly, so you win. You get the Hibiki Dan signature move. Get ready to feel it, kid. Gataken, self-taught fist. Dan threw his attack at Naruto with one hand and it looked just like a perfect Hadaken, unlike Sakura's which had more marked differences from the real deal. It actually alarmed Naruto, and how good it looked, for the 5 feet that it flew before dissipating. Karen probably would have laughed if it hadn't been so pathetic. Performance anxiety, I presume. She commented to Batsu, who could only nod dumbly. Naruto just stood and stared before turning towards his 2 friends at the front of the crowd, noticing that the person he was looking for was not amongst the pair. Sakura-chan, are you watching this at all? He yelled, trying to get the girl's attention wherever she was in the crowd. I can't see Naruto. Nobody's moving. What's happening? A grin came to Naruto's face as he cupped his hands over his mouth to project his shout better. You don't have the worst Hadaken I've ever seen before anymore. Dan animatedly fell to the ground upon that declaration from Naruto. Hearing Naruto start to laugh at him and his fighting skills, Dan got angry and pointed at Naruto. At least I have my own attacks. What can you do except crawl around and hide like a roach under the fridge? Tell me what you can do. Naruto stopped laughing, a chuckle coming out every now and then as he responded, well, I can't do a Hadaken either, so I guess picking on you isn't fair. But I can do this though. He formed the ram hand seal and then formed 3 more, stopping on the dragon seal and inhaling sharply before exhaling and spitting. Chakura Tankisha, Chakra Spitfire. From Naruto's mouth flew a blue wispy ball of blue energy that managed to fly straight towards Dan, who was smart enough to jump away and dodge it, showing that he was actually well conditioned from the height of his jump. The attack from Naruto flew and exploded off of the head of the human figure at the center of the fountain, knocking the head of the statue clean off. Whoops, Naruto said, looking mortified at the public property damage of his jutsu. My bad, I'll fix that later for Fr. Before he could finish, Dan fell from the sky and landed with a punch that snapped Naruto's head to the side and sent him stumbling, the crowd gasping at the clear impact of the landed strike. Ha! How do you like that? Dan verbally taunted before slightly backing off and cocking his arm back with a hand full of ki, Gattaken, self-taught fist. This time he was well within the range of the attack and the ball of energy slammed clean off of Naruto's open torso, sending him flying back through the crowd of people that he bumped into with force. Yeah. Looks like another victory for Hibiki Dan. He posed to the crowd before he felt movement from Naruto. Come on, that was full force. Who pops right back up from that? Naruto coughed and thumped his chest with his fist before getting back up from the ground. That was it? He asked, looking over himself and not even seeing any damage done to his clothes. Sakura-chan's Hadouken at least burns me a little bit when it hits. That was like a punch with ki. It didn't even hurt any worse. The crowd scattered away to get a better view once Dan ran towards Naruto, and the two began to exchange actual strikes. Starting with a stiff straight punch, Dan missed Naruto, who retaliated with a side kick to the body to knock him off balance. Naruto went to make his hand seal for some Kage Bunshin help, but Dan didn't let him begin a special technique, punching Naruto in the face and breaking his focus. Trying to form clones several more times didn't bear any fruit, except for when Naruto used the Kage Bunshin hand seal to block a kick from Dan, so maybe he doesn't suck. Naruto switched from trying to use a jutsu to simply fighting hand-to-hand again before he screwed around and got his teeth knocked out by this guy. Slipping away from a side kick, Naruto grabbed the kick with one hand and pulled himself towards Dan to strike him hard in the face with a back fist that had momentum behind it. Blood flew from Dan's nose and he huffed out of it to clear his sinuses of the red, spraying it all over, including on his and Naruto's clothes and face. Naruto jumped back from the exchange and wiped Dan's blood from his own face in a bit of disgust before finally making the cross hand seal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique. Dan's jaw dropped when 20 Naruto stood between him and the original and rushed him. He soon recovered though and began taking them in the order that they reached him, blocking their strikes and forcing them to come to him, refusing to let himself get surrounded by the group as he cut into their numbers. A punch to one's stomach and a kick to one's head that dispelled 2 clones, and Dan jumped right out of the soon-to-ensue pileup before he was stuck. 3 clones jumped into the air after Dan, only to be met with a Gattaken that hit 1 clone and knocked it into the other 2, dispelling all 3. The crowd began to cheer as Dan landed and started fighting off Naruto's clones again until they all dispelled en masse, creating a large smoke screen. Rah! Naruto dove right through the smoke and delivered a skull-shaking shot to Dan's face that shook him and forced him to recoil right down to his foundations. His knees shook and nearly buckled. Naruto struck him so hard. In Naruto's other hand he formed a Rasengan to put the fight to bed right then and there. Rasengan, spiraling sphere, Gattaken, self-taught fist. The 2 attacks met and exploded in a blast, knocking both combatants away from each other. Naruto flew into the fountain and slammed off of the statue, landing in the water face down, submerging and then resurfacing, staying there momentarily before pulling his head up and gagging on the water. Dan, despite being thrown away much harder, had an easier landing with a crowd of slow-moving spectators to break his fall. Naruto popped up, pissed off that he was thoroughly soaked, and ran a hand through his wet hair. Okay. I'm definitely awake now. Chakura Tankisha, Chakra Spitfire. Dan jumped out of the way of the attack and the crowd scattered and hit the deck, finally giving Sakura and the other girls a chance to see the fight clearly with Karen and Batsu. Come on, Naruto! Batsu yelled at Naruto as he saw his friend jump out of the fountain to attack Dan again up close. Stop screwing around and knock this mother out. The wild-haired boy was fidgeting impatiently. He fought me harder than this. Why is he just sticking around here? Sakura wondered the same thing as well until she saw people getting closer to the fight once again to watch Naruto and Dan go back and forth, missing their strikes. That's it, she said as if she found out a realization. There are too many people around here. What does that have to do with anything, Sakura-chan? Hinata asked curiously, Naruto doesn't seem like a shy guy that plays things close to the vest like that. From a few past meetings where Naruto would routinely use his abilities for even the most rudimentary things like getting up to get himself a drink, it was clear that discretion was not the better part of valor for Naruto. Kei had to nod in agreement. Naruto's a total show-off kind of person. He loves stuff like this. Fights in public where people can see him. He'd almost be as obnoxious about his fighting as this Dan guy is if it weren't for the fact that Naruto can totally back it up. Naruto stuck to walls regularly, walked upside down on ceilings in the hallway at school just because he was bored, and he tried to skip school before by leaving a clone in his seat. He would have gotten away with the last one too if his clone hadn't been just like him in every way, attention span included, and fell asleep in class. When the teacher smacked him with her ruler, Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke. No, it's not that, Sakura disputed, pointing out how much closer people were moving still. Look. They just wanted to get a better view, but it was messing with Naruto whenever he tried to back off to begin a jutsu or thought of using weapons. It doesn't bother Dan because when he throws his Gattaken, it's never going to go out of control. Naruto's Spitfire and all of his bigger attacks are dangerous. Frowning at the thought of Naruto holding back so that he didn't hurt anyone, Karen spoke up. Uzumaki is a total bleeding heart. If someone gets in his way, they should have just been faster. It's their own faults for standing too close to a fight if he hurts someone. You know Naruto's not like that, Sakura said, narrowing her eyes at Karen. If these people don't get out of his way, he's not going to use his big moves. She looked back at the battle with Naruto trying to knock Dan around, but every time he was about to deliver a punishing blow or wish to smash him into sweet unconsciousness, his setups would steer Dan back enough to get him close to the people. The circle seemed to be getting tighter and tighter. He has big moves? Karen asked with a raised eyebrow and an interested look. And he wouldn't use said big attacks as long as there were people around? Well, she was curious, and Naruto's propensity to think of others was not going to keep her from stating it. That could be remedied very quickly. Karen cleared her throat and held up her wallet from her school bag. Everyone that stands back away from the fight and gives them a properly wide berth of at least 40 feet all around, I will pay them 5,000 yen each. Eyes panned away from the fight, and even Naruto, and the 3 clones he had helping him, as well as Dan, stopped to look at Karen in shock. Skepticism appeared on many people's faces until she rolled her eyes and reached into her wallet to pull out a large wad of banknotes. Hinata blinked at the sight of everyone stepping back like obedient dogs and looked at Karen, who had a pleased and victorious look on her face. Wow, you do know that this is like at least 70 people, right? That's 350,000 yen. Karen looked at the amount of money she still had in her hand and looked into her wallet before frowning. Shibazaki, could you go to the bank for me and withdraw enough money for upwards of 70 people? Almost seeming to appear out of thin air, Shibazaki appeared, scaring the hell out of the other 4 spectator friends of Naruto. He bowed and took her bank card before making off to head to the nearest place to withdraw from. There we go, she said in a pleased voice. Now you'd better stop holding back, Uzumaki-san. I won't hire weak people to represent me, she said in something of a sing-song voice. Fine, Naruto said with a grin. I've got space to cut loose now. No holding back. Tajua Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. The large space between the crowd was filled by nothing but copies of Naruto, completely surrounding Dan on all sides. What the hell is this? It's mirrors! It has to be mirrors. People can't do this kind of thing. Man, it's been a while since I tried to use a lot of clones like this at once, Naruto said as all of his clones seemed to be smirking, cracking their knuckles, and looking at Dan with squinted eyes. Let's see your strongest style, block this. The clones started to rush Dan and grab a hold of him. He managed to take out several, but compared to the dozens in the plaza it was no good, and eventually his arms and legs were bound by the Kage Bunshin. They then threw him into the air, and like a swarm of bugs taking off from an apple, the others started launching into the air after Dan, who was flipping head over heels. The first clones to reach him kicked him down to the others that punched him higher back into the air, letting other clones boost up off of their shoulders when they were dropping to the ground to get a higher jump over Dan, where they kicked him down again. And this just went on and on and on until it was clear he could no longer continue. Naruto dispelled his clones and let the quite thoroughly beaten up Dan fall to the ground, unconscious and covered in bumps and bruises to say the very least. Uzumaki Naruto Mugen Rendan, Naruto Uzumaki Infinite Combo. Remember, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and to you and everyone else, the greatest ninja alive. Naruto said with a smile before turning to the crowd with a displeased look on his face. The next time you see people winging balls of concussive ki or chakra around, get thee away from them, you idiots. A Hadouken that could sustain itself at a distance would have been tagging fools left and right if Dan's could have lasted longer than 5 feet. And those idiots just kept moving closer and closer despite the fact that over a dozen people had been injured during the fight. So he felt that he was in the right when profanely shrieking angrily at them, shooing them all away from the scene to get away from the crazy blonde teenager. After properly scolding the present populace to his heart's content, Naruto put his grin back on and turned to Karen. Thanks for the open space, by the way. His special moves really sucked, but his basics were pretty solid. Training with Sakura cleaned up his hand-to-hand fighting in close with no maneuverability, but he'd always be partial to the hit and run moves that comprised his main strategy. Still stunned as she had never seen the full scope of Naruto's Kage Bunshin creation capabilities, Karen had to take a moment to snap out of it and put her normal facade back on. Oh. Do not mention it, Uzumaki-san. As they spoke and she got her swagger back, Shibazaki was in the background paying everyone. You had to save your job after all. Good work, by the way. She walked out and poked at Dan with her foot, getting a groan from him. This person defeated Sagat? I do not believe it. Naruto gave her a deadpan look as the others walked out to join them. I don't know if I should take that as you calling me weak, or what. He then found himself in a headlock from Batsu. Hey! Get off of me, jackass, Hibatsu said, sneering at Naruto while giving his friend a noogie. You see what happens when you hold back? You make a fight harder than it should be. You should have been winging shuriken and using spitfires until you ran out of weapons and energy. There were people, Naruto said, lifting Batsu off of the ground and throwing him off of his shoulders. Naruto clicked his teeth in annoyance when Batsu just rolled through it and landed on his feet. I don't want to kill anybody. He spared a look down at the Dan, even this guy. My bigger moves, that one was the nicest one. They get worse. Sakura's eyes went wide. Your attacks get stronger? But that combination had to have been more than 1,000 hits. That was amazing. He said he hadn't made that many clones at once in years, and he had never even thought to go that far to fight against her. She didn't know how to feel. Happy that he cared enough to make sure she stayed alright, or upset because he didn't ever find enough of a reason to fight like that against her. That wasn't even close to my worst, Sakura-chan. Naruto said with a pronounced grimace. The last time I actually went all out, the last time he had been forced to go all out, it had been a fight that was more or less to the death that had dumped him in this world, away from his home. Well, I just never mind. Well, Hinata started before laughing spiritedly. That was awesome. You punched and kicked that guy so many times I lost count. He's out cold. The petite girl's bright mood broke Naruto's funk just like that. Naruto smiled before his brain seemed to take a moment to buffer, and he spoke half robotically, answering her question. I hit him 817 times. He then noticed the others looking at him in shock. What? I didn't even know you could count that high. Batsu jibed, getting a small giggle out of K before the older boy took an elbow to the belly from Hinata for being mean to the victor of the day. Karen had a blonde eyebrow arched in interest at learning more and more about Naruto and his strange abilities, while Sakura just came out with it and asked the question that was eating at her and her rival. Naruto, how do you know that? Nobody was counting those. 1 or 2 of my clones counted. I think they got between 830 and 750. 817 sounds good though, right? They didn't say anything to you before they dispelled. Yeah, I know, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly as they all began to leave the plaza. It's weird. When my clones go away, I think I get their experiences back, like a flash of déjà vu. It's creepy if it's something that I wasn't there for, like when Kid-sensei hit my clone in class. They all kept talking amongst themselves while Dan lay there on the ground, finally waking back up and groaning in pain, twitching every now and again. Ugh, I gurk. I'm still the man, I'm still the man. I'm blacking out again, he said before going limp. 3,395 a month free GI replica shirt. XXX. Later that afternoon, after the trouble in the plaza downtown, the lot of kids went to a small burger place to get something to eat. Karen had sent Ishizaki to go get her something more suitable to her refined palate. There, Naruto had gotten a good eyeful of this website that ranked fighters around the world. Looking at Kei's laptop with a dropped jaw, Naruto sat between Karen and Batsu while Sakura, Kei, and Hinata sat on the other side of the booth. He didn't know quite how to feel about what he was seeing. I'm famous? He was well known to an extent, the way he had always wanted to be when he was younger, and still did pretty much. The funny thing was that it didn't seem like it at all. But if people were calling him out, that had to count for something. I don't feel famous. You are not famous, moron, Karen said, bursting his bubble before either his head started to swell, or he zoned out to daydream about his fame at the table. She took a bite of her fancy-looking food brought to her by her butler. You are well known in certain circles, but you are not famous. No one outside of this town that does not actively train knows who you are, and even if you went to the mainland, I doubt that 5 people would know your name. His name's kind of cool and sticks with you though, Kei lamely added, getting a shake of the head from Karen. Hey Naruto, are you done yet? You've seen your little profile already. Naruto waved her off, as he was barely listening at that point though, instead checking to see how complete this whole thing happened to be as he read his results aloud. 212 recorded one-on-one fights, no proven losses. He then frowned, no notable victories. Batsu barked out a laugh at hearing that and dodged a French fry thrown at his head from Naruto. So basically, they're saying that your record is padded. You have a lot of fights against nobodies, but you've never been seen losing, so they had to give you some kind of credit. Look, he pointed out Naruto's list of past opponents, and the vast majority of them didn't have a name, just being noted as random opponent 1 all the way to the end of the number of Naruto's MOT recent fight against an unnamed opponent. There were well over 150 of these. Batsu then held back a snicker as Naruto scrolled lower and read the comments left on his profile page by site contributors in chronological order from the latest one written. How many stupid heirs voted Uzumaki Naruto high consistently enough to get him in the top 100 in Japan? He's never even fought a tournament match. #70 my ass. He should stop kicking around nobodies if he actually wants someone to rank him for real. Uzumaki is just a violent delinquent kid with key abilities. He's more of a sociopath than a fighter to look out for. If he stepped up and fought someone with some name notoriety, then maybe he'd deserve it, but 200+ fights against nameless tomato cans isn't helping his case. He might as well beat up a punching bag on camera for all most of his wins are worth. I'd love to see any of you win 200 fights straight against nameless tomato cans. I'd love to see any of you win a single fight, period. There's a reason you're all here posting on this website talking about guys like him instead of having us talk about you. I think Uzumaki could take some of the top 20 if he ever had the shot. He is like 15 after all. Just how well traveled do you expect him to be, exactly? He's greener than a blade of ing grass. If he wanted to be a real fighter, he should have just foregone high school to train. He's wasting his own time and effort now with school if he's trying to do both at once. It's just stupid. How is he green? He's been on the radar for 3 years. Eventually he had to break through to the top 100. All fighters under the rank of 20 are pretty much future prospects, washed-up old contenders, and journeymen. I'd say Uzumaki's a prospect. The second he takes on a real fighter, he'll get slaughtered. I heard Hibiki Dan was looking for him. I can't wait until the results from that surface up. Being unbeaten is all he has. The first time he loses, there's no reason to keep him in the top 100. Boot his bogus ninja wannabe ass out. Naruto shut Kei's laptop much to Batsu's chagrin as he was still reading the comments. They were the best part of the page in his opinion. Ah, come on. Some of those were kind of funny. At least let me read the archives from last month. He turned to the others in the table when Naruto handed Kei's laptop back to her. Some people have enough time to argue over some guy they'll never meet in person, I guess. Sakura noticed that Naruto was uncharacteristically silent, and reached out a hand to grab his forearm and get his attention. Naruto, are you alright? What are you thinking? He looked at his brown-haired best friend and audibly clicked his teeth irritably before answering. I was just thinking that I could probably find all of these people and kick their asses for talking shit about me. That's pretty much what the internet is for Naruto, Kei said, placing her laptop back into her back for safekeeping, slandering others anonymously. Finding these people and beating them up isn't going to change that. It would probably make it worse. I can just imagine the reaction comments now. The thought of Naruto beating up some web contributors and then reading what they post about him next thoroughly amused Hinata. And then thinking of his possible reaction to that had her giggling in fits. You'd be better off just not going back to that site again. It'll only make you madder. At least he's ranked, Batsa added, even though he didn't mention the fact that he himself was ranked number 99 in Japan. He was rather proud of that fact, and he wasn't stupid enough to read the comments on him like Naruto. Sakura then gave Naruto a soothing smile to try and make him feel better. You don't really even care about being ranked or not at all anyway. Being the best isn't why you fight, right? You told me you do it to protect the people you care about. From what? Karen interjected, holding her cheek in her hand in a bored manner as she looked at Sakura. What exactly is there to protect any of you from? There is no real crime in Aohura City. Yakuza don't stray seriously over here, and no one is stupid enough to try and attack me. So there's no danger. You obviously don't hang out around Aohura City enough then, Hinata remarked as she took a sip of her drink, thinking back to just how much trouble she got into with Batson not too long ago. His hiring of Naruto to help them actually got him acquainted a bit better with her. Naruto actually traveled around, so there was no telling what he could eventually or had already stepped into at some point. Danger never exactly occurred in Karen's presence. But that didn't mean it didn't happen at all. Why do you hire me for bodyguard work all the time then? Naruto asked the well-to-do heiress. You must really like my company then. But that's impossible, because you kind of hate me, don't you? Karen's cheeks turned red, but one couldn't see it due to one being in her hand and the other facing away from anyone in the booth's sight. It was a good thing, or else the others might have gotten the wrong idea. I do not hate you per se, Uzumaki-san. I just dislike you with great intensity. Hate is a word I would reserve for Sakura-san here. In return, Sakura stuck her tongue out at her, getting Karen to smirk haughtily right back at her. It is better to be safe than sorry in any case. This is why I ask you to accompany me to so many places. That, and it rightly ticked off Sakura when she requested Naruto's presence for work when she knew that they were either in school, on the way to school, or on the way home. It was something of an art form in her mind to call him at just the right time, so that Naruto wouldn't be upset but Sakura would be. Almost like she could feel Sakura's ire for her bothering them through the phone like she was there in person. No, you do not do your job just to protect others. Karen ventured to guess, getting a good look at Naruto as if she was trying to see something underneath the surface. If you did, then you would probably be some goofy vigilante superhero type. You seem like that kind of person. She then remembered the way Naruto's eyes lit up when she told him that he was fighting her for 1.5 million yen. I would say that you do it for the money. But judging by the way you live, it is not for yourself. However, you do not have any family living with you, or any that anyone knows of. Shibazaki started checking into your background when we first started corresponding, and he found no record of you until 3 years ago. So what do you need money for? Naruto lives all by himself with no support, and pays his own way through school. Sakura interjected in Naruto's defense. He works all the time around town, and even further out than that, trying to make money to keep himself going. Sometimes he doesn't even ask people to pay him if they really need his help or if they can barely afford him. Her friend was a good person. There wasn't anything greedy about Naruto except when he had a smidge of ramen within his grasp. Then he was a glutton. If he ever gets hurt in a fight, and can't do his jobs anymore, then he'd fall into the red. That's probably why he works so hard. Karen ignored her though, keeping her full attention to Naruto as she stared right into his emotive blue eyes. She'd find an answer there. Naruto's eyes gave him away more often than not, no matter what the issue at hand was. And he seemed to be just daring her to truly look for what he was thinking. So tell me what it is that you truly want. She said to him intently. Whatever it is, I can more than likely get it for you if I feel like it. I want to find a way home. He wanted to say that out loud, but he had to bite the inside of his lip to keep from whispering it out. No one here could help him with that. And no one there would believe him either or understand in the slightest. Yeah, what's with the heavy atmosphere? Batsu said, brazenly stealing Naruto's fries and breaking the standoff stare between the two blondes at the table. I don't know if you two are going to fight or. Drawing his attention away from Karen, Naruto took his fries back from Batsu and held them out of his reach when he tried to scramble for them. It would have ended in a scuffle more than likely if every girl on the other side of the booth didn't proceed to kick them hard in their shins to stop them from being stupid. Alright. Damn, but seriously. Are you going to do anything about that crap people are talking about you? The only thing you can do to fix it is look for tough fighters and beat them. I don't want to look for tough fighters and beat them, Naruto replied, chewing on fries once he figured it was safe to do so. That isn't going to get me any money, and I don't care about my ranking even if a bunch of nerds like to talk smack on a message board. He didn't use the internet anyway unless he needed to, and he never really needed to unless he and Sakura had a project for school. As a matter of fact, even then she was the one that always did the research when they worked together. Still going ahead with that excuse about the money, is it? With a smirk on her lovely features, Karen's predatory tone got everyone's attention and suspicion. Okay. How about this then? You are interesting. So I will fund whatever your endeavor just so happens to be for which you need so much money. Just so long as you do something for me. Naruto stared at her suspiciously before sighing in resignation. I think I know what you want, and I guess it's okay. Karen had a victorious look on her face at this point until he spoke again. As long as you're paying, I guess I can take you with me. Karen's elbow slipped off of the table in surprise and her chin crashed onto the hard surface out of surprise. That's what you wanted, right? No! Karen exclaimed, rubbing her chin as she started pointing, poking Naruto right in the chest repeatedly. I want you to actually make an attempt to advance in the rankings. I want you to make an attempt at becoming world-class, not just known throughout the country, but the entire world. That is what I want from you. Because if you are seen as one of the best in the world, then what would that make me when I beat you? Well, now Sakura definitely smelled a rat, and she didn't like it, so let me get this straight. You want Naruto to go around and actually try to get higher up the ladder? And you'll pay him for it? Just because you want to fight him and beat him? Why don't you just keep training to try and beat him now? Or travel around to win your own fights? Batsu had to agree. He liked the idea himself if he thought that he could really stack up when it came to high-profile conflicts like that. But he would rather stay in Aohura City with his mother than do such a thing even if he was able to. Why would you give him money for this? Because if I lost our fight, I want to know that I lost to the very best there is. Karen then flipped her curly hair back over her shoulder and stood proudly. And when I eventually do beat him after he becomes elite, I will give him anything he wants. Karen calmly confirmed in return, anything at all. Because by then I will have improved enough to defeat him in return, and prove that much like the Kanzuki family in all other things I am world-class myself. And I cannot put a price on that. Batsu just stared her down like she was insane. You are one rich, bored little brat. You know that, right? He asked, not getting any retort from Karen, who simply didn't care about his opinion one way or the other. Hey, she had just met him that very day. You're going to pay him for this? The reasoning was eventually broken down by Kei, who had sat in abject silence to soak it all in. So you want Naruto to go around fighting and winning against good fighters until he becomes known as good himself, just so that you can fight him later and beat him and take his spot or a high spot around him. Karen nodded, seemingly having no shame in admitting such. How high do you want him to go exactly? Until he reaches the world rankings, I will not freely fund him. Being ranked high in Japan means absolutely nothing to me. I will simply give him what he needs to get around and challenge other fighters wherever he desires to travel, and only if I know who he is seeking beforehand. I will not have my generosity taken advantage of. Having Naruto raise his own stock before just challenging him after he did so was the simplest way imaginable to get herself a notable win. Hinata blinked her big brown eyes and then took a sip from her drink that was nearing the bottom. Why Naruto and not Sakura-chan then? Isn't she your actual rival? You two really don't seem to like each other, so wouldn't you want to beat her instead and get something out of it that way? A scoff came from Karen. I can beat her any time I wish, and she is not interested in fighting for anything other than to get the recognition of Ryu. She will never be relevant enough for me to get much notoriety from defeating her, even if I sponsored another entire tournament. I feel like you just insulted me 7 different ways just now. Sakura deadpanned. She wondered how Karen would like another supercharged Hadouken to snack on instead of her fancy food. That is because I did. I don't have a response to that, Kenzuki-san, but when I do, I'm in. Naruto interrupted before the two could actually get into it. Eventually he wasn't going to be around to stop it, and those two were going to beat the hell out of each other, and probably tear up a good chunk of property in the process. But that was neither here nor there. I'll do it. How much will you give me for each fight? Paid travel was a great start in his venture to search around for what he was looking for. And a little fight every now and again never hurt anyone. Making a noise as if she were actually thinking, Karen tapped her chin before giving Naruto a sugary sweet smile. It depends on how impressive your performances are. I would never shortchange you, I assure you of that. Naruto apparently didn't even realize what he had gotten himself into. But Sakura could and hoped that Naruto was prepared for some serious repercussions. You just made a deal with the devil, Naruto. I hope you realize that. Such a disarming smile from her blonde rival as Naruto shook her hand. You should have just signed your soul over to the Shinigami. It probably would have just cut out the middleman. Make Sakura's first Hadouken. 2 years prior to current storyline, early evening, Aohura City, Sakura's backyard. Hadouken, Surge Fist. 13-year-old Sakura's hand shot out with one vertical palm touching the other one that was placed upside down, although from her hands erupted no concentrated blast of ki despite her putting her all into the movement. Sakura moaned as she slid to the ground onto her knees and put her face into her red combat-gloved hands. Why? I know I can do this. So why is this so impossible, yo Sakura-chan? Naruto said, popping out from the leaves of a nearby tree in her yard upside down, scaring the life out of Sakura. Unlike Sakura, who still wore her school uniform after school, Naruto rushed home and changed out of that stuff as quickly as he could into a green t-shirt and a pair of olive cargo shorts with white shoes. Want to play some video games? I'm not really in the mood right now, Naruto, sorry. Sakura said miserably, shifting to sitting on the ground with her knees pulled to her chest. She felt him land on the ground and walk up to her, getting her to look up at his rather concerned face. I think Tsukushi's inside if you want to play him. He's better than me and he wants a rematch with you anyway, she said, trying to convince him to let her be for the time being. Not that it worked though, as Naruto stooped down to her level to get a face-to-face view with her. What's the matter? You were fine at school and when I left you to go home, so tell me what's up. He then grinned wryly, mostly to himself. Seriously. Who am I gonna tell if it's something bad? Well, it wasn't anything that was really embarrassing, but it was still something she didn't like admitting, so she mumbled it out under her breath. Huh? I didn't hear you, Sakura-chan. Speak up. I can't use ki, she shouted with a slightly red face at admitting such. An alarmed Naruto fell right onto his backside before getting himself back together and sitting cross-legged in front of her. There. I said it. I've been trying to use it for years, but I just don't know what I'm looking for. No dojo in Aohura City actually knows how to do it because they can't, and I guess I really can't either. That was it? Naruto smiled at her and gave her a friendly pat on the shoulder. Well, of course you can use ki, Sakura-chan. If I can use chakra, you can use ki by now. It's the same process to feel it, and you've been working out and training your focus ever since I've known you, but I've never done it. I can't feel it. Well, do you even know what it feels like? Sakura blinked upon realizing that she had never felt ki before. But wait a minute, there was something wrong with that. Wait. Doesn't ki come from inside of me? My own energy, right? So how could I know what it felt like? Naruto held out his hands for her to take, much to her confusion, until he explained, my sensei did this for me when I was a kid to show me what chakra felt like. Now come on. Give me your hands, you still are a kid, Sakura remarked, looking at Naruto's hands in a suspect manner. But then again, what was there to be suspect about? Naruto used ki, or chakra since that was what he called it, and wouldn't ever be swayed to call it what everyone else did. Americans were weird, and it was obvious that he knew what he was doing with it. At least he knew more about it than she did, if nothing else. Okay, she said tentatively, placing her hands on Naruto's and letting him grab a hold of them. Upon grabbing Sakura's hands, both kids closed their eyes. Naruto began breathing slowly and focusing his chakra through his body. Sakura was also trying to focus, thus she felt Naruto's chakra flow off of him and into her to feel. A quiet gasp left her lips as she was overwhelmed by the feeling. That's ki. But it's so strong. There's no way I've ever felt that before. A sheepish Naruto laughed nervously. He forgot that he was supposed to have more energy than almost any living being. Ah, that's my fault. Sorry. I wasn't really trying to control it. Intentionally ebbing his chakra to lessen the intensity, Naruto fixed that problem. There. How about now? It was like comparing a raging river to a gentle stream for Sakura when Naruto cut back on his chakra output. It feels comfortable, she said with a smile. It's really warm. It feels like a coat or something. She was then abruptly cut off from the feeling, getting her to snap her eyes open. Hey, why'd you stop? So you can try it now, Naruto said in reply. If you don't get it or forget what you're supposed to be looking for, I'll still hold on to help you out, okay? Sakura nodded and closed her eyes again with determination, looking for that feeling inside of herself that she had just felt from Naruto. It took a while, but eventually she found it centered around her heart, and felt her body flush with the rich inner energy. I did it, she said, laughing to herself a bit. I feel it. Did I do it right? Is this it? Understanding her delight at accessing her own power, Naruto couldn't help but laugh right along with her as he could feel the ki going through her. Yeah. You did it, Sakura-chan. That's it. The two just kept laughing, Sakura in pure excitement of finding her ki and Naruto because he was just as happy as she was over the matter. Well, what do we have here? What are you two doing? Both Naruto and Sakura stopped laughing only to find Sakura's mother leaning against the open backdoor frame of the house. She had long brown hair and a kitchen apron on over her normal clothes along with a sly smile on her face. You two look mighty comfortable with each other. Sakura honey, I didn't know that you and Naruto were that close. Then again, he is the only boy that ever comes around here, so it makes sense. Wondering what Sakura's mother was talking about, both Naruto and Sakura looked at each other before looking down at their hands that were still joined. A self-conscious blush sprang to the cheeks of both children before they hastily separated hands. Mom, Naruto was just showing me how to feel ki, Sakura hastily defended. Is that what kids are calling it today? I just call it holding hands, Sakura's mother teased, getting a good laugh out of the embarrassed look on her daughter's face and the mortified one on Naruto's. Well, if that's the case, then go ahead and show each other all the ki you want. She turned around, shaking her head and planning to leave with one last remark. I wonder if Naruto's birthmarks are hereditary. Mom! Sakura cried out loudly, trying to vigorously get her attention before she shut the door and left it at that. There was no way she was going to get teased over her choice of best friend after such a breakthrough. Naruto really showed me how to feel ki. Seriously, just watch. Hadouken, Surge Fist. Sakura hastily fired a blast while in the form needed to do so. Only in her rush to get her mom's attention to alleviate the humiliating situation, she didn't notice that she aimed in the direction of the still-seated Naruto, who despite only being 3 feet from Sakura was mentally miles away at the moment with a flushed red face. A flushed red face that was then hit with a blue and purple flashing version of Sakura's Hadouken, knocking Naruto flat on his back and out cold to boot. Sakura let out a helpless squeak and ran to Naruto, grabbing his head and checking over his singed face. Ah! Naruto! I'm so sorry, that was an accident. Please wake up. By then her mother had made it back outside to see her daughter holding on to Naruto's shoulders, shaking him for all she was worth to try and revive him. Don't be dead, Sakura, he'll be fine. Her mother insisted, though her eye twitched when Sakura stopped shaking him and his head tilted back limply. You might kill him if you keep shaking him though. Character profile. Name Batsu Ikemanji. Nationality Japan. Gender male. Age 16. Birthday January 1st. Height/weight 5'7" 141 lbs. Blood type surprised face. Likes ninjas, his mother justice. Dislikes dogs, unfairness. Hobbies eating fast. Working part-time job selling milk and newspapers to help his family. Rivals Naruto Uzumaki, Kyosuke Kagami. Fighting style derived from Imawano-style ninjutsu of combat. Current techniques: Kyoden, Energy Compression Blast / Guts Bullet, Mikazuki Kuro, Crescent Moon Kick, Ryusai Kero, Falling Star Kick, Suisai Kuro, Comet Kick. Hyper techniques: Neketsu Zenkai Kyoden, Hot-Blooded Hyper Energy Compression Blast / Burning Super Guts Bullet, Imawanoryu Mozu Otoshi, Imawano-style Flowing Drop. Background: rather foul-mouthed, belligerent, and impulsive, Batsu is still a rather kind person despite a rough exterior. Having a strong sense of justice, Batsu finds himself in trouble more often than not for one reason or another, getting him the brand of something of a delinquent. Usually centered in his own mischief and trouble, his issues eventually overlapped with Naruto's, leading to them meeting and becoming friends, with Batsu sometimes employing Naruto, for a discount, to assist him. Batsu has a decent arsenal of moves that he makes good use of despite a lack of formal training, though he has a propensity to spam the distance attack he has given the pet name of Guts Bullet from time to time whenever he is angered in combat or particularly distressed by an enemy. Name: Hinata Wakaba. Nationality: Japan. Gender: female. Age: 15. Birthday: April 12. Height/weight: 5'1" / 90 pounds. Blood type: surprised face. Likes: rare things, hand-to-hand combat, cakes. Dislikes: dirty things, insects. Hobbies: singing and dancing, various after-school clubs, origami. Rivals: none. Fighting style: undeterminable. Current techniques: Kick is Shudiai, Energy Cultivating Palms End, Shuyuken, Sunrise Punch, and Bukyaku, Blazing Dance Kick, Renkyakuden, Consecutive Leg Blast. Hyper techniques: Hisho Renjekin, Assured Victory Constant Punching, Rasen and Bukyaku, Spiral Blazing Dance Kick. Background: a smart girl who excels in most sports. A childhood friend of Sakura Kasagano and a schoolmate of Batsu Ikemanji, Hinata is proficient in martial arts on par with national-level fighters. It is a mystery even to her closest friends just how she received her training, as she is quite tight-lipped with any explanation others try to pull from her. Quite energetic and at times a bit of a smart aleck, she's a cheerful person that despite her combat skills rather enjoys her regular life as a schoolgirl, not looking for too much more outside of that. Fights a speedy, pestering, countercentric style, chaining combination attacks into heavy specialty moves. Noted friendly sparring partner of Sakura for years. Name: Dan Hibiki. Nationality: Japan. Gender: male. Age: 25. Birthday: November 25. Height/weight: 5'9" / 163 pounds. Blood type: surprised face. Likes: his father taunting. Dislikes: seaweed, small-time crooks, Sagat. Hobbies: tile breaking, singing karaoke. Rivals: Sagat, one-sided, Naruto Uzumaki, one-sided. Fighting style: Saikiryu, the strongest style. Current techniques: various taunts, Gataken, self-taught fist, Dankukyaku, severing air leg, Koryuken, Saikyu Rabubugo, strongest current protection. Hyper techniques: Hisho Buraken, certain victory villainy fist, Shinku Gataken, shaking sky self-taught fist, Hao Gataken, supreme king self-taught fist, Koryu Rekka, dazzling dragon raging fire. Background: began training as a fighter for revenge against Sagat, as in retaliation for a fight in the past where Dan's father gouged Sagat's eye out. Sagat proceeded to kill Dan's father. Trained under the same master that taught Ryu, the past winner of the World Warrior Tournament, but was expelled before completing his training when his motives for training became clear. Dan developed his own fighting style based on his teachings and from Muay Thai. Eventually finding Sagat, the two fought, with Dan coming out victorious. Dan does not know, however, that Sagat took pity on him due to his drive for vengeance, and let him win. Most fighters do not take Dan seriously due to his demeanor, and weak-looking, and weakly impacting, attacks, or they find him amusing. This has led to a few upset victories over competition that Dan was far overmatched against. It had been a little over a week since Naruto's deal with the devil, as Sakura had so aptly anointed it. In that amount of time, Karen had not called Naruto about any work, nor had she even summoned him to her mansion to go over his game plan for how he would be trying to rise through the rankings. Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, he took advantage of the free time available to him and merely trained, spent time with his friends, and worked, splitting his time between the three things evenly for the most part. And at the moment on that Sunday, since he had the day off from school and had decided to give himself a day off from taking jobs, he was heading to Sakura's house in a pair of orange athletic shorts, a black t-shirt with a satellite image of a hurricane in dark colors, and a pair of black sandals. The good kind, the kind that had support like the ones he wore back in Konoha. Chances were, he was more than likely about to do the former two things that he had spent the entire week doing: hanging out with a friend/training, only this time with her. Crash! Hearing a very loud smashing noise, Naruto ran in the direction of it since it was coming from the direction of Sakura's home. Rounding the corner, and reaching the street that had the side of her home, he stopped when he came upon the tall wooden fence that closed off backyards in that neighborhood. There was a jagged hole punched right through it, twice the size of his head. Looking through the hole with a grin on his face, he saw a human-sized dummy right by the fence strung up from a tree branch near the fence that was pretty much untouched, and Sakura standing 20 feet away, her hands still extended from what Naruto presumed was a Hadouken, a mortified red blush on her face at being seen after such an attempt. Well, things would still be alright for her as long as he didn't say anything. "You missed a Hadouken, didn't you? Damn it." Naruto shoved his entire top half of his body through the hole and wriggled himself through for shits and giggles just to pick on Sakura a bit. What happened? He really wanted to know, just in case the explanation was even funnier in reality than his imagination made it. Sakura crossed her arms over her chest and turned away from him, getting Naruto to roll his eyes. "I already know. I just want to hear you say it." Sakura was wearing a red windbreaker jacket with a white stripe going down the sleeves and a pair of black leggings that stopped at her thighs for her casual clothes. "You know how the more power I put into my Hadouken, the less distance they get?" Naruto nodded, knowing that when decently charged up, Sakura's Hadouken barely went further than Dan's variation of the attack. But he sure as hell wouldn't want to be hit by one. "Well, when I just fire it, I get better distance. I just can't aim it when I do it that fast." "Oh, don't worry, I can tell," Naruto quipped before Sakura fired a Hadouken and hit the dummy Naruto was standing next to. "Hey, you got it that time. I was aiming at you." "That's not nice, Sakura-chan." Shaking her head with a playful scowl on her face at his pout, Sakura walked over to Naruto and popped him in the shoulder lightly for him messing with her. Reaching up, she messed up his hair further until he moved her hand away. She let out a laugh before looking at the massive hole in the fence. Naruto, could you fix that for me really quick?" "Really quick?" Naruto repeated in a skeptical voice before whining outright. "Sakura-chan, it's my day off. I don't want to fix your wall right now for free," he added in the end, getting her jaw to go quite slack. "You're charging me. This isn't the first time you did this," Naruto said, not budging on the matter as he crossed his arms over his chest stoutly. "I fixed your stupid fence 5 times already since you started using Ki for free. And now I'm just supposed to fix it because I was here for it? No way, you've got clones." Sakura tried to stress, pointing out Naruto's free workforce. "We could just hang out while they fix it. I am not your one-stop shop for cheap labor." "Not today, Databeo." Naruto then felt Sakura latch onto his legs tightly, getting him to squint his eyes at her. "What the hell are you doing? Naruto, please fix the fence," Sakura more or less begged him, not letting go of his legs. "If Mom sees this when she gets home, she'll ground me for weeks for doing this again." "Come on." A puff of smoke engulfed Naruto, and Sakura then found herself hugging the training dummy. "How do you keep doing that?" she asked as she stood back up and let the dummy fall to the ground. "You left my hands free when you hugged me," Naruto responded from his crouched perch up in her tree by the fence where he had gotten the dummy for his kawarimi. And now he was just a hop away from getting himself out of Sakura's yard and far away from the house if she chased him away. She couldn't fix that fence herself, and she didn't get enough money to actually pay Naruto to fix it. Naruto was kind of expensive. She could probably only barely afford to buy the wood if she needed to. "I'll fight you for it," Sakura abruptly blurted out, getting Naruto to tilt his head in confusion. "I'll fight you, and if I win you have to fix the hole for free. Come on. Bring it on." Well, he hadn't actually gone up against Sakura in a while. The last time he fought her, they kind of tore up the grass in the backyard and took out more than a few of the tiles on the roof of her house. He could still hear Sakura's mother yelling at them after it was over. "No. What do I get out of it? You can have the knowledge that you beat me," she ventured with a smile. Naruto returned the smile wryly as he seemed to sit in the tree like a cat. I always beat you. You've got to do better than that if you want me to fix this stupid fence, Sakura-chan. I don't want to fight today, it's my day off. I'll take you to the ramen bar you like and buy you whatever you want. Deal. Sakura palmed her face, but still pointed to the shed in the far corner of the backyard where the wood was kept. She might as well help him because if her little brother Tsukushi got home and saw the hole in the fence, he would still snitch on her, and she'd still get in trouble. XXX. Hours later, downtown Aohura City, Naruto could be seen through the curtains of a ramen bar eating happily, and sitting next to a distraught-looking Sakura as she tried to convince Naruto to stop at 5 bowls before he bankrupted her. The person watching him from a safe distance atop another building nearby took note of Naruto's rather gluttonous appetite and disengaging attitude. So this is the ninja from Aohura City? The figure said stoically with a frown on their face. This guy, I wonder how legit he is. The frown that was on the person's face deepened when he saw Naruto and Sakura walk outside and try to cross the street, ending with Naruto getting chased by a motorcycle rider all the way down the long road and around the corner at the end of it with Sakura trying to follow him. Wow. Well, he's fast like a ninja. Laughs, I guess I'll find out later. XXX. Evening, Naruto's apartment. On the way home after the rather chaotic series of events that followed Sakura treating Naruto to lunch/dinner, Sakura exhaled in an audible huff of sorts. Boy, that escalated quickly. A somewhat scuffed-up Sakura said as she and a dirty and smudged Naruto walked up to his apartment building. I mean, that really got out of hand fast. It jumped up a notch. Naruto uttered, scratching the dried blood from a head wound suffered during the previous fight off of his face. It did, didn't it? Sakura thought in amazement. Having never been there in person for most of them, she sure hoped that wasn't how all of Naruto's gang fights went. Pure insanity. Aohura City's police force absolutely sucked if he got away with all of that on a regular basis. Yet Naruto admitted with something of an impressed tone, I thought Batsu was going to kill that one guy. Today was not normal. It actually brought a special brand of crazy, and it was supposed to be his day off. Even his actual fights against gang weren't that tough. Today was not one of those days because his opponents were all trained and rather skilled from his experience of dealing with them before. If not for some timely intervention, it would have been 4-on-1, and he'd be on a strict ramen broth diet for the foreseeable future. I saw that. Batsu put that guy with the eraser hair and the knives in the hospital. I swear he had to have. Did he throw a motorcycle? Sakura said with wide eyes at recalling watching Batsu pick up an entire 500 pounds racing bike over his head to chuck it at some of their opponents to help Naruto and her in the fight. Even one of her other friends got involved to help out. Naruto's eyes brightened in memory of just how ridiculous everything got in under 3 minutes. Yeah, there was fire and explosions, Batsu threw a motorcycle, and I'm pretty sure I accidentally copped a feel or something. By the way, where'd you get a grenade? That wasn't a grenade, that was a full-power Hadouken, Sakura said, remembering how impressed she was by herself. The damn thing didn't go far at all, but it was bigger than her entire body when she threw it. Her brain then glossed over something Naruto may or may not have said. Wait, what was the last thing you said? Naruto instantly averted his face away from Sakura's so she wouldn't see his expression. Seriously, what happened after I lost you when you ran? That whole thing was like the perfect storm. A red blush sprang to Naruto's face, remembering the chain of events that led to the massive cluster of a fight in town as they made it to the opening by the stairs that led to Naruto's floor of the complex. There was a lot of stuff you guys weren't there for, Sakura-chan. Thanks for getting Batsu and your friend Natsu though. I really needed the help. It really was a long chain of events starting with him running from that motorcycle outside of the ramen stand. No problem. Anytime. Sakura replied, focusing more on her rather utterly ruined outfit from the events of the afternoon. She didn't know if she had been better off hedging her bets with the hole in the gate, or going home with those totally messed up clothes, but there was no way she was taking her clothes off in Naruto's house and walking home in his baggy crap. Besides, her mother would remember what she was wearing earlier that day and she'd never keep the secret for long. I'll see you in school tomorrow, Naruto. Bye. Naruto waved goodbye as Sakura started off of the property, and stopped to stare for a moment when he saw a bloody handprint going down her back and stopping on her backside. Whose blood is that? he asked belligerently, getting her attention once again. Sakura looked onto her back as best she could and frowned before shrugging, "Not mine." With that she just continued on to her house and Naruto went up to his floor. Opening the door to his place, Naruto kicked off his shoes, walked in, and shut the door behind himself before quickly shrugging off his quite beaten-up clothes, leaving him in yellow boxers with green frogs on them. He needed a shower to get the blood and dirt and whatnot off of his body after the free-for-all he and his friends had wound up in downtown. How was I supposed to know? He muttered to himself, remembering what exactly lit the powder keg earlier as he stepped into his shower with the water running. Crazy bitch tried to run mid-on. After he had sufficiently cleaned himself of the remnants of battle, he stepped out of the shower and threw on his pajamas as he left to his room to attend to his much-neglected homework. He could slack off later in the year, but not right then. He needed some goodwill with his teacher at the moment. Leaving to the living room area to grab his backpack that he hadn't touched since he had dropped it there the day before on Saturday, Naruto stopped cold once he reached the room. The reason being because he saw someone in the connecting kitchen raiding his fridge, though their body was out of his view due to the door of the refrigerator and the table in the kitchen in his line of sight. At that moment Naruto did some mental deductions. Sakura? No. She had just left. If she was going to come in she would have come in right then. Even though she had a key she never used it unless she was certain he wasn't there. Good girl to not abuse the responsibility of the key. Batsu? No, not him either. If it was Batsu then he would have been way louder and Naruto would have known even in his shower despite the fact that his apartment complex had some thick walls. Besides Batsu lived all the way on the other side of Aohura City, and after the scrum they had gotten into that day it was more than likely the first thing he did was go home to get a shower, some muscle rub, and some rest, same as Naruto and Sakura. Karen? Pfft, yeah right. Karen didn't have a key, but that probably wouldn't have stopped her from somehow getting in anyway. She probably would have ordered his landlord to open the door for her rich girl. But she definitely wouldn't be in his fridge if she even had been there. She didn't eat commoner food and she'd verbally tear into anyone that tried to make her, if not physically tear into them. So he didn't know this person. Great. That meant that he didn't have to feel sorry for what he was about to do with the lamp he picked up off of the table nearby. At least he wouldn't have felt sorry for it, if not for the little tanuki that dashed out from underneath his couch and latched firmly onto his groin with its teeth. In hindsight, Naruto liked to believe that the yell he let out at that point wasn't as high-pitched as it seemed to him immediately upon leaving his throat. It had to have been a bit more masculine than it sounded. Men didn't sound like that. Alarmed by Naruto's yell, the figure at the refrigerator looked up from behind the door with an onigiri sticking out of her mouth. From that point she simply chewed on the rice ball and watched Naruto freak out and roll around all over the apartment trying to get the tanuki off of his privates. When Naruto finally realized that he still had the lamp in his hand and raised it to strike at the bastard tanuki, the female in the kitchen made a sharp whistle that called the animal off. However, as the tanuki jumped off of him, Naruto had already swung the lamp at it and wound up hitting himself in the testicles with the lamp for his troubles. This was just not his day at all. The tanuki ran into the kitchen and hopped up on the person's shoulder as she made fond ing noises to it. You're such a good boy, Don. Protecting me when my back is turned. Hearing the feminine voice over the sounds of his own rampant cursing and shouting, Naruto blinked the tears of pain out of his eyes to get a good look at just who was in his house. From the legs up, he got his view. Cloth bandages wrapped around the back part of the person's feet, their shins, and their ankles. From that point up they wore brown baggy pants tight where the bandages started, but loose everywhere else. Around the waist, the pants exposed the outside of her thighs and some of the insides almost all the way up to the hips where the belt of the pants were tied. Tucked into the baggy pants she, yes, most definitely as she by now, he was certain of it, wore sleeveless upper garment, and from the V-neck of the garment she had a face mask that was pulled down at the moment, probably so she could eat, and had brown arm guards. She had black hair with 3 sharp bangs sticking out of the front of her brown bandana on her head, and 2 long ponytails sticking out of the upper back of the bandana. She wasn't attacking him though. There must have been no need to add injury to injury in this case. He hadn't even dressed his wounds from the street fight earlier, Could you grab me an ice pack from the freezer? Naruto asked, and thus received when the girl threw one to him. She was a ninja, or at least dressed the part, but at the moment he felt cold relief on his nether region, and that wasn't a bad thing. Why are you in my house? The girl sat up on the counter in Naruto's kitchen and crossed her legs as she fed the rest of her rice ball to the tanuki on her shoulder. I heard that there was a clanless ninja in this part of Japan, and I figured that I'd just pop in to say hello. So hello. A ninja breaking into my house? To say hello? Naruto said as he dragged himself into a sitting position in his living room couch. Really? What do you want? He narrowed his eyes at her. If it's a fight you want, it's a fight you'll get. The ninja girl hopped off of his counter and waved her arms in front of herself defensively. No, I'm not here to kill you or even to fight. I really did just want to meet you. Why? I want to hire you. Hire him? That was kind of weird, wasn't it? She was a ninja, so why would she need another ninja? It didn't make any sense. What can I do that you can't? Wait, I don't even know who you are. I definitely don't work for someone I don't know. My name's Ibuki. The girl said cheerfully as she pointed to the tanuki still eating on her shoulder. This is Don. Sorry about the whole biting your junk thing. He's my pet. You walk quietly. I didn't even know you were there even when you didn't know I was here. She walked over to where Naruto was sitting and grabbed a chair from the kitchen to sit down, and once she figured he probably didn't want her that close. From the way he was moving his hand towards the edge of the couch cushion, he probably had a weapon under the cushion. So let's talk business. Uzumaki Naruto. Used to people he never met knowing who he was by now, Naruto still didn't move his hand away from a position where he could quickly use his kunai. What does a ninja want with a ninja anyway? And why can't you just ask your own clan to do this? Ibuki laughed sheepishly and rubbed the back of her neck in an almost Naruto-like fashion. I kind of ran away from my village. You're a missing nin? A what? Ibuki replied in confusion before continuing to explain. I didn't leave for good. Just for a while to have a bit of fun. It's so boring there. All I've ever done since I was little was just train, and train, and train. I just wanted a bit of a break. Maybe I could meet some cute boys outside of my village or something. Naruto made a noise of skeptical understanding as he looked at her with squinted eyes. And why do you want to hire me? I'm being chased and I need backup. Ibuki admitted, her face turning from the pretty easygoing, sweet look from before to one that was serious. Yeah, he hadn't even seen her fight, or even move outside of walking to a chair, but that was a ninja's reaction to being pursued by someone dangerous. So I want to hire you for protection or assistance when they attack me. I'm not getting scared back home just because of some loser Geki ninja punks. So watch my back, would you? After Ibuki finished talking, Naruto simply sat there and stared at her for a bit before getting up, grabbing her by the hand and pushing her to the front door. It's late, I'm all beat up, and it's my day off. I even put it on my answering machine that I was taking a break today. So try again tomorrow afternoon after school. Good luck with the whole ninja assassins coming after you thing. He managed to get Ibuki to the door before she realized that he was kicking her out, and she managed to stop herself once he opened his door by pushing back against the doorframe to try and resist. Wait. You're kicking me out? Can't you help a girl in need? Don't you have some kind of ninja that goes against this or something? Naruto strained against the young kunoichi in an effort to shove her out as he wanted no part of this today. My nindu is that I never run away and I never give up or go back on my word. Well, I'm not giving up on kicking you out, and I'm not going back on my word when I say I'm going to kick you out. She was pretty strong though, and had the leverage, and her tanuki was scratching his face up. You never told me why you broke in either instead of just knocking on the door or calling the business number. About that, Ibuki said, still struggling to stay inside the apartment. When I said I was being chased, I meant on the way here too. After about 15 seconds of continued pushing back and forth, Naruto's brain kicked into gear and registered what Ibuki had just said to him. That statement got Naruto to stop trying to show her the door. Naruto simply walked past her outside and looked over the ledge of his floor of the apartment complex to see about 15 shadowy figures on the rooftops across the street from the building. Naruto calmly took a deep breath despite the running commentary going on inside of his head. He turned and walked back to his apartment where he moved Ibuki out of the way and shut the door, locking it, and making sure the blinds and curtains to his windows were all shut. Once that was done, Naruto turned to Ibuki and started crying animatedly. Why did you bring them to my house? Now they think I'm with you. Ibuki moved back towards Naruto's couch and plopped down on it where he had been sitting before. Sorry. There wasn't anywhere else to go. They caught up to me outside of Aohura City. I couldn't lose them with all of the lights downtown, so I ran to the safest place I could think of, another ninja's house. She idly reached under the couch cushion and pulled out a Fuma shuriken, unfolding all four sides and marveling momentarily at it, overcompensating for something cutie? Her response was Naruto's pajama shirt being thrown over her head while he walked back into his room. Hey, this can't be happening, Naruto said to himself as he shut the door to his room and started changing into his actual fighting gear. An orange one-piece jumpsuit with a hood he kept down that was loose in the pants with a blue belt that held his equipment, and bandages around his ankles. He pulled on a pair of blue 4-ounce gloves that Sakura had bought him for his birthday so that he'd stop messing up his hands all the time, and walked back out, pointing at her accusingly. You put this evil on me. How do I make them go away? Kill them? Ibuki said, shrugging in confusion. I don't know. I've never fought this many Geki clan ninja at once before. My sensei told us that our clan is derived from a Geki ninja that left them, so they hate us and want us destroyed. They probably think you're with my clan or something since I came here. We can't stay here. We won't make it until sunrise, I can promise you that. At that point the power was cut out, see? Ibuki chirped helpfully. Damn it. Okay. That certainly wasn't good. What is with this day? Is it National Let's Screw Naruto Over Day? It had to be a bad moon or something because this was ridiculous. Naruto walked into his kitchen with Ibuki following him, and she watched him go under his sink in the cabinet to pull out a false wall that led to a small, dark crawl space. Come on. I guess I can't let you get killed by those guys out there. Really? Ibuki said as her Tanuki Dan ran through the space to wherever the exit on the other side was. Yes, damn you. Naruto replied, gesturing for her to go as he went to grab his good sandals from by the door. Just do it already. He couldn't even charge her for the service because they'd have tried to kill him too. And with that he followed her in and shut the doors to the cabinet as he was the last to go through. XXX, you're a really nice guy, you know that? Ibuki said as she and Naruto ran along the moon-bathed rooftops with her Tanuki Dan hanging on to her shoulder tightly. I was expecting someone all gloomy and serious like most of the ninja in my village, but you're kind of cool. Why are you not taking this seriously? Naruto snapped at her, looking back over his shoulder to see that the black-clad Geki ninja were beginning to give chase in earnest, all with claws on their right hands. Shit, should we just stop and fight? Ibuki pulled her face mask up over her mouth and raised her eyebrow at Naruto. Why are you asking me? Aren't you supposed to be the famous one here? Not for real reasons. Naruto thought to himself, actually thinking better than to say that out loud. We can't just run away all night, and I left my damn phone in the apartment. Smooth. Oh, shut up, lady, this is your fault anyway, Naruto said with a twitching eye. So between the three of us we've got the baddest ninja on the face of the planet in myself, or whatever you are, and a gigantic rat to fight 15 of these guys. Dan hissed at Naruto for being called a giant rat while Ibuki addressed her own rundown from Naruto. I'm a kunoichi in training, by the way. What? Naruto shouted as they kept running, but in my village I graduated way before this. How are you still in training? You don't seem to suck at this. Ibuki took offense to that as a tick mark appeared on her forehead. Hey, we all can't be geniuses like you. Your village must think you're pretty hot stuff to give you free rein to do what you want. I'm a freshman in my high school back home. They don't really let us skip grades in ninja school no matter how good we can fight, so we can learn about the outside world. People get killed like that even though the education sucks. High school. Okay. Just when Naruto thought he had a decent enough handle on this world, it just kept getting weirder and weirder. Ninja high school. Sure, why not? Duck. Ibuki tackled Naruto to the rooftop to avoid a large shuriken thrown at his head. Man, that was close. She stood back up and stood in a fighting stance as the first of the 15 caught up to them. You jerks have been chasing me for days, so show me what you've got. I've got someone to watch my back now. Naruto jumped back up to his feet and stood back to back with Ibuki when he saw Geki Ninja coming from his own side of things. Right. It's just 15 guys. We can kick their asses easy, right? Absolutely. Now let's do this. Ibuki and Naruto both threw a barrage of shuriken all over to scatter the Geki Ninja and began actually fighting once they had them good and separated. The first move Ibuki made had her show absurd short-range speed when she after-imaged right at someone in a sliding move, rolling through into a handspring and seeming like she kicked off of air to grab a hold of her first opponent's neck from behind. 2 more Geki Ninja tried to react, not caring that their comrade was a hostage, but Ibuki used him like a human shield and put the 2 others down with kunai that hit them in the head and neck respectively, Kubiki, neckbreaker. With a sharp crack, Ibuki dropped the lifeless ninja and moved on. The next one got close enough to start a close-range fight with her that had Ibuki dodging claw strikes until she felt comfortable to counter. And counter she did with a fist charged blue and full of ki, Raida, lightning strike. The punch landed low, right in the opponent's ribs, but after the point of impact, the ki jolted outward like a bolt of lightning into the opponent, and out through the other side, blasting him away from her. 4 more ninja appeared on all cardinal sides of Ibuki out of nowhere, bringing their claws from 4 sides in a pincer swing, but she simply shot up into the sky and let loose her next move, Kasumi Suzaku, Miss Vermilion Sparrow. She let loose a lightning-quick barrage of deadly metal projectiles, riddling them full of weaponry like training dummies except they bled. Naruto on the other hand got himself surrounded rather quickly due to his desire to fight in close. Damn it! Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto formed a ring of clones around himself that drew kunai and defended him from the claws while the original jumped into the air in the center of the ring and made a trio of hand seals, Chakura Tankisha, Chakra Spitfire. He fired one shot that nailed an opponent in the head, breaking his neck from the force of the chakra projectile. 3 other Geki Ninja that had been fighting with Naruto's protective clones and had beaten them jumped into the air to murder him with their claws only for that Naruto to disappear in a puff of smoke, leaving an open Fuma shuriken in his place with a wire attached to it. With a sharp tug of the wire it began to spin at a deadly velocity, and cut the ninja down out of the sky. The original Naruto then yanked hard on the wire and pulled it back towards himself while 3 more Geki Ninja advanced on him. He jumped over the deadly spinning blade and let it cut down 2 of the enemies while the 3rd one got through. Maybe a half-assed, half-suicidal version of a move he saw Sasuke do, but he didn't have Sharingan, damn it, and he'd take what he could get. The last Geki Ninja attacking Naruto swung a claw at him in a rapid, deadly wall of violence. Lifting a kunai to block that barrage would have resulted in the loss of an arm, so Naruto just backstepped for all he was worth, holding his right hand behind his back and out of sight until it was too late for the enemy to react to Naruto's move as he dug in his feet and drove his right hand forward with a nasty little surprise. Rasengan, spiraling sphere! Naruto's Rasengan smacked the claw and shattered it. The strike broke the Geki Ninja's balance in addition to the claw, and Naruto spun through with his move to bring it back again, this time grabbing the ninja's collar to drag him into the devastating jutsu for much more damage. Go to sleep, and go to sleep he did, as the angry red spiral mark that tore through his clothing and left an impression on his chest belied the internal injuries that the Rasengan dealt him, sending his lifeless body flying into 2 more Geki Ninja approaching to try and reinforce. All of them fell brutally from the rooftop, and would not be getting back up from the angle they landed at. What kind of moves were those? Ibuki wondered, making her way over to Naruto after the rooftops seemed completely cleared. Half of those moves were totally in dash. She stopped talking once both of them sensed another presence, and put one last ambushing Geki Ninja down with a pair of kunai, one from Naruto in the chest, one from Ibuki in the head. There. Are we done now? Duck. This time it was Naruto that tackled Ibuki to the rooftop to avoid a claw attack from one more waiting in the shadows to finish them in case of failure. The claw slashed him across his back, but he was able to get her down safely, with the tiles giving way and the 2 ninjas sliding off of the roof to land in a bush below, Ibuki on top of Naruto. That was close. Thanks for the save, by the way. I owe you one, she said, winking at him before noticing him grimace. What's the matter? We landed in a thorn bush. Naruto whispered out in absurd amounts of pain at this point. Ow! Ibuki quickly hopped up to give Naruto some relief from his place in the thorn bush, and looked back where the enemy had been only to find the man dead on the rooftop where they left him. Smiling at figuring that Naruto put him down while in the process of saving her, she turned her attention back to Naruto. Does your back hurt? Yes. Naruto whispered without hesitation before he felt Ibuki grab onto his wrist and forearm, and a look of fear came to his eye. What are you about to do? An apologetic look graced her face as she held on tightly to Naruto's arm. I know this is probably going to sting a bit, but I need to get you out of there before you get infected or something, okay? On 3. 1. 2 dash. XXX. Sakura's house. OWWW. Mother! Why don't you just throw me back in for what it's worth? Sakura sat up in her bed with a start as that loud noise from outside split the air. The sleepy girl got up out of bed and walked over to her window, lifting it up to get a good look at the seemingly still night. That sounded like Naruto. She kept looking around for a moment before shaking her head and shutting the window. She was going back to bed. If he didn't call, then there wasn't a problem, and even if there was, that yell meant he was alive and well enough to bitch and complain about it. She'd figure out exactly what was up tomorrow morning. XXX. Later, Naruto's apartment, laying face down on his bed with the top of his fighting outfit pulled down. Naruto's face was stuck in a pillow to muffle his indignant yelling while he slammed a fist on the bed. Ibuki sat on the edge of the bed with a pair of tweezers picking the remainder of the dozens of thorns Naruto had out of the back of his neck, torso, arms, and legs. Stop whining, you big baby. For a famous fighter and ninja, you really act like a kid, Ibuki said, finishing picking thorns out of Naruto's back and grabbing a bottle of rubbing alcohol for disinfectant. If you didn't like that, then you really aren't going to like this. And with that, she poured the alcohol on his back, more specifically on his large claw/wound. The splash damage managed to get his thorn holes too, but that was not the important thing. I think I hate you, Naruto whined into his pillow as Ibuki dressed his wound. I've never said that to anyone before, and I just met you tonight, but I think I might hate you. As she finished placing the bandage on his back and gently pat it down, Naruto let out a sigh of relief, since that meant his pain was all over. Thank you. No, thank you, Ibuki said, standing up and bowing to Naruto, who turned his head to the side to look at her. You really helped me out tonight. Naruto nodded in response. No problem. Yes. Yes, problem. This crap, compounded with everything else that had happened that day, wasn't going to heal by morning. Sunrise was 3 hours away. What a day off. You needed the help. And I told you, I'm the greatest ninja alive. He finished with a grin/wince. He certainly didn't feel like the greatest ninja alive, but if he said it enough, it would eventually be true, right? Really, you've been super helpful. Ibuki continued, getting to her knees and bowing again once more, her head rising with a sweet smile. So I was wondering if you could do one more thing to help me for a while. I kind of need a place to stay for a bit. Why did no one ever tell him girls could be so absurdly dangerous and troublesome? Wait. Shikamaru had been telling him that all along. He really should have taken the guy with the 200+ IQ's word for it. I do not think that is possible anymore, young lady. Ibuki's smile twisted into one of slight horror, and Naruto just lifted his eyes to the doorway of the room, where he saw a tall, muscular man wearing a red tan pants, glasses on his face, and a red bandana on his head. Damn it, how many of you guys are going to break into my house tonight? If he wasn't a ninja, he'd have gotten sick of the whole thing by now. Are you here to kill me too? Or get me killed too? Those are the only two options I've gotten all night long. Naruto mouthed off, despite looking rather vulnerable at the moment. Laughing sheepishly, Ibuki turned around to sit down, rubbing the back of her head nervously. Ha 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 hi, Sanji-sensei, what brings you to Aohura City? You. The man, Sanji said sternly before sighing. You snuck out of the village, Ibuki. Not only is this forbidden, but you've just seen how dangerous it is to do so by yourself. It's time to come back home with me. You're given enough liberties at your request because you are a splendid student. Are you really this set on flaunting the rules we've set? Sensei, Ibuki said, looking quite pitiful. It's just I want to see a bit of the world. Even if it's not that far, even if it's just for a little bit. This was actually really great. No, it wasn't great. Naruto snapped from his place on the bed while Don curled up to sleep right by his head. I got clawed in the back, Databayo. Right. Ibuki said while pointing at Naruto. It was mostly great, except for having to fight the Geki ninja. But even that had its points to it. Aohura City is such a nice place. It's so interesting here. I even met a ninja that doesn't have to stay in his village, and he's my age. And he's so good. You should have seen the fight, sensei. I think he could have beaten them all by himself. I did indeed see. Sanji said, you almost got him killed at the very end. You need more seasoning, Ibuki. That's why I want to go out more often. Ibuki continued, not relenting on her own stance even against her sensei. The fight got her blood boiling and she hadn't fully settled down yet. I appreciate everything you guys have done for me, really I do, and I'm loyal, but I just want a little more, I don't know, free will. Can I at least go to a regular school? Sanju didn't seem to budge much during the conversation except for a slight softening of his face. This is something to be taken up with Master Enju. But you must return with me now. This is your first offense, and like I said, you are one of the brightest young ninja we have. You should not be reprimanded too severely. He then gestured towards Naruto. You cannot impress upon this young man any more than you already have. I think I'm allergic to tanukis, Naruto said with a sniffle. Ibuki looked from the very wounded Naruto to her sensei and let out a sigh as she stood up and grabbed Don from Naruto's bed. All right. I'll go, she said in a defeated voice before turning to Naruto himself. Thank you for everything you've done tonight, Naruto. I really appreciate it. You're a really good friend, and you're my first friend on the outside. Take care of yourself, Ibuki, Naruto said, still laying down with a smile on his face. And don't take your village for granted. This guy here, I don't know him, but he seems to care a lot. Sanju nodded and spared Naruto a ghost of a smile. Sanju gestured for Ibuki to follow him out of Naruto's house, and she did so, stopping at the doorway of Naruto's room and waving at him with a sad smile before leaving with her master. The door to the apartment clicked shut and Naruto felt that he was left alone. Well, that was the most hellacious day he had in quite some time. He didn't know exactly how much of this to tell his friends, possibly thinking about omitting the part where he fought over a dozen trained assassins and took a claw to the back. And now he was never going to get any sleep. It was less than 3 hours to sunrise and he was all jazzed up from the chase and the fight, plus his back felt like someone was holding him over an open flame. And the fact that now that she was gone he came to the realization that Ibuki was hot. Yeah, he was never getting to sleep now that dash. ZZZZZ, never mind. XXX. 4 days later, Tamagawa Minami High School. It's the truth, Sakura-chan, Naruto said as he walked through the halls after lunch with Sakura and Kei. He wished Batsu was there. Not only would that kid totally believe him, he'd probably be upset that Naruto didn't call him with all of the ninja running around the place. I don't know what you two are laughing about. You saw the scratch on my back from the claw. I've been telling you the same story for days. We also fought one hell of a street fight on Sunday, Sakura said, calming down her laughing long enough to speak. So what seems more believable? That you got really hurt during that fight and didn't notice it until later when you got home, or that you coincidentally met a ninja running from a platoon of ninja assassins and got hurt fighting them in an old-school full-moon rooftop showdown. Kei put a hand on Naruto's shoulder and chuckled gently. Yeah, Naruto. You told Sakura-chan and me the story every day since Monday morning, and I've got to say, nobody can be that unlucky. That's running a gauntlet from hell. Uzumaki. Naruto cringed and turned around to find himself looking at the rather burly, bald, mustachioed principal of their school that didn't really like Naruto, figuring him more of a delinquent that just didn't do much in school to be openly labeled as one. Still, the kid didn't fail exams, even short answer tests. It was like he was looking at the answers right in front of him from the books or getting them told to him somehow, but that was impossible as he was watched like a hawk. Yes? Naruto responded, not wanting to do something to cause the man to burst a blood vessel. Did I do something? He seemed to ask too innocently for his or anyone else's good. Did you do something? If you can't prove it, then no, I didn't. The man palmed his face with an audible smack, moving his hand to show the print left on his face. I don't care, right now we have a new student and you're the one that's going to show them around. To the main office with you. What? Why me? Fine, you can just go back to class and sit for the rest of school then instead of giving a tour for the rest of the time. Naruto was already at the end of the hallway by the time that sentence was finished. Later K. By Sakura-chan. I'll catch up to you guys when the final bell rings. He then rounded the corner and headed to the main office. Who? Free permission to skip? This week is looking up. With a big closed-eye grin and a spring in his step, it didn't take long before Naruto rounded the corner to the main office to pick up who he was supposed to be giving a tour to, deciding to make a first impression to the new student with some oomph behind it. Yo! I'm looking for the new kid here. I'm Uzumaki Naruto and I'll be giving the tour today to show you where stuff is. What's up? He said in a friendly, yet very boisterous manner until he opened his eyes and saw who was sitting outside in the lobby. He then promptly paled and pointed in shock. No way. Why are you here, sitting on the bench dressed in the school's uniform and no bandana or any ninja wear at all this time was Ibuki, who looked herself over before answering Naruto. Well, can't you see from the uniform? I go here now. She stood up and walked over to him, circling him thrice before patting him on the back. That healed up really good if it still doesn't hurt. Naruto whirled around and faced her with an accusatory stare. Don't change the subject. I thought you had a school back in your village. You're not supposed to leave, right? Upon hearing that breakdown of her situation, Ibuki smiled brightly. Master Inju is allowing me to go to a normal school as long as I get up early every morning to train, and I figured out which school you went to, so she trailed off in the end. God damn it, it is too easy to find me. Naruto muttered to himself miserably and Ibuki couldn't help but nod in agreement. Why here? Why my school? Well, you're the first person I've met outside of my village that I didn't have to fight. Ibuki seemed to fidget while trying to find the words to express what she was trying to say to him. You had my back. You're a trustworthy person. I'm not sure I'd feel this comfortable if I didn't have a friend with me. How mad could someone really get because someone wanted to go to a school? Not very, all things considered, even if the someone wound up directly or indirectly throwing him into the night from hell. And Ibuki was a nice person. In the end, Naruto simply didn't have it in him to alienate someone who wanted to be his friend. Hell, he never figured he'd even have that option. It just went to show how different this world was from his own. Alright, let's go then, Naruto said, getting Ibuki's face to brighten up, something that got his own to do the same. But you're a ninja, so we're doing this the ninja way. I hope you're good at making traps because that's what we're doing today all over the school. Non-lethal, he added for clarification purposes. However, Ibuki already knew what he was hinting at before he even added the last part. She gasped and hit him lightly on his shoulder. You're bad. But she did a lot of the same when she was in her village. Maybe now more of her prank traps would work on people that weren't ninja themselves. As long as they didn't get caught, of course. I like that. Yes, shadow clones were nice for making mischief around school in Naruto's opinion. They were obedient, and since they had your mindset they went about the tasks with just as much vigor as you would have yourself. But there wasn't anything like having a partner in crime. Kei wasn't really capable of being sneaky. Sakura was too much of a good girl to help Naruto out, and none of Naruto's other friends went to his school. But Ibuki seemed to be just his speed in that department. Maybe she'd be fun without the dozens of attackers chasing her? Oh, who was he kidding? She'd probably be fun with 100 attackers chasing her. Oh, make escapades in Aohura City. A few hours after Naruto fixed Sakura's fence, downtown Aohura City, Sakura held up her wallet, breathing out a sigh of relief that she was able to stop Naruto at just 6 bowls. She had expected at least twice that, and now she had some money left over and her fence was fixed. An appropriate sacrifice to the demon that more than likely dwelled within Naruto's belly, as that was the only way she could reason as to his appetite for even his favorite food. Are you full? She asked him upon seeing him stride out of the stand with a content hand on his stomach. Naruto nodded happily, thank goodness. So now what do we do? Remember before you answer that half of my money was just spent on your gut. Naruto, who was walking around with the chopsticks from the meal sticking idly out of his mouth as he chewed on them, just fell into step beside Sakura with his arms behind his head as they started walking down the street. I don't know what to do now. Arcade? I haven't kicked your butt at something in a while. Pass. Sakura thought aloud contemptuously. Naruto had to be cheating at all forms of video games whenever they played. A normal person's fingers should never be able to move that fast without being accused of button mashing. Damn him and those hand seals. And he said that he wasn't even that good at them. Movie? I don't know what's playing these days though, nothing you'll like. Naruto replied right back, hey, why don't we go mess with Karen? I know where she lives now and we can prank the hell out of her. He offered up with a saucy grin with chopsticks stuck in between. Her house is so big we can trap a place, and she probably won't get hit with it for days. That almost got Sakura to stop and think about doing it before remembering that Karen lived outside of town. Even if they caught a train in time, they'd have to walk forever to get there after disembarking. And then getting in and out of the property in one piece was another thing. She wasn't a ninja like Naruto, and she didn't think even he was logically considering his own chances of success in that venture. He was going to get himself fired or call down her wrath if he was really willing to try that. Well, we'll think of something to dash. Gasp, I know. We can go shopping. No! You should have called Kei or Hinata if that's what you wanted. Naruto barked out louder than he had meant to, getting the attention of everyone around him. I mean, no. Sakura proceeded to pout before the sound of an engine revving caught their attention, and the two turned around to face the sound of the rather indicative noise. Turning around, both of them saw someone on a black racing motorcycle, wearing an entire leather bike outfit with spiked skulls on the shoulders of the jacket, and a skull design on the front of the all-encompassing helmet. Upon being sighted by the two, the rider revved the engine again twice. Naruto, did you make a biker gang mad at you? Aohura City doesn't have real bikers, does it? Well, we're looking at one right now. The two friends locked eyes and nodded before taking two very large steps away from each other to figure out if Naruto was indeed the point of interest. From the wheelie that was then popped in his direction, it was quite evident that it was indeed the case. Damn, 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 damn! Naruto repeated over and over as he turned around on his heel and took off down the street before the bike's front tire hit the ground again, and it took off after him. Naruto! Sakura yelled after him with a bit of worry. He was fast, but he couldn't outrun a motor vehicle on an open road. Still, she did her best in chasing after the two on the sidewalk, but at a markedly slower pace. Sakura, is that you? Where are you running to? Hearing her name called out by a familiar voice, Sakura stopped and looked for the source, her eyes brightening when she saw exactly who it was. I need your help really quick. Come with me, please. XXX, racking his brain to try and figure out who he might have upset that rode bikes, gave Naruto no answer as to why this was happening, but survival instincts kicked in as he eventually rounded the corner. He was lucky that the streets were too crowded further down the line for the biker to stay on the road and properly keep up with him, but that then meant that they just hopped the motorcycle onto the sidewalk to chase after while Naruto ran on top of the backed-up cars in the street. Naruto turned his head when they got side to side and paled when he saw the biker take a chain from their belt and prepare to swing it at him. What did I do to you? Naruto shouted before diving directly right, slamming his body into the bike and knocking his assailant off of the vehicle, ending with all of them catastrophically crashing into tables and chairs outside of an ice cream parlor. Fortunately, no one was harmed with the exception of the two involved. Picking himself up from underneath a patio table and chairs, Naruto held his head and looked for the nearby biker who had gotten up first due to their padding to check on their bike. The biker looked at Naruto and the two simultaneously dropped into fighting stances. Seriously, I don't know you. What the hell do you want? You beat up my brother, was the deep-sounding reply, though it sounded like a totally fake voice intentionally trying to sound male. Naruto did not pick up on this and figured it was just some guy trying to get him back for a previous street fight. I beat up a lot of people's brothers, but if I beat up yours, then he was the one that picked the fight with me, Naruto said in cheeky fashion before frowning. Now take off that helmet so I can kick your ass the right way. Before the two could start fighting, Naruto had to dodge a small army knife that was thrown at him. Turning to face the person who threw it, he couldn't help but palm his face. Kami, what do you guys want? The boy, with his hand still outstretched from throwing the knife, had his tongue stuck out slightly askew and wore a baggy purple school uniform with the jacket open to show a purple turtleneck underneath. On his head was a purple sweatband, and he had his blonde hair styled up in a tall series of spikes that looked kind of like an eraser. Yamada Eiji or Edge. The dirtiest fighter Naruto had ever gone up against in Aohura City, and that was saying something since he was a ninja. The next was an extremely burly and hulking young man with spiky brown hair and a white headband. He wore a green uniform with one sleeve missing and with a belt made of rope over bamboo slides that seemed to look a little like rudimentary armor for one's torso. Isarajigan. No high school student should have been that big. He stood almost a foot taller than Naruto, and was definitely more than twice the width. The last of them was the most normal looking in comparison, but from Naruto's past experiences he was the most dangerous of the three. Slicked back spiky black hair sat upon his head with a scar going horizontally down and across his left eye. He wore a blue school uniform with no modifications or perks added to it, but he was just as tall as Gon and muscular in his own right. More so than Naruto anyway. Kazama Daigo. Naruto was acquainted with all three of these young men because they were in and ranked highly in the only high school gang in the city that was actually well organized and adequate as a unit. Daigo happened to be the boss of Geto High where all of these boys were from, and they had run across Naruto once every so often, first during Batsu's multi-school spanning trouble that he found himself in and then sporadically after that point forward. The gang picked fights with Naruto due to who he was, and when he beat up the lower-tier members Daigo would take offense, and then they would fight. It was like an ebb and flow kind of situation. Fighting just one of those guys when they were on point held its own slew of troubles for Naruto. He really didn't wish to fight all three of them at the same time. Clones would not be enough to keep the heat off of him since they were actually good. Aohura City had way too many people that were good at fighting for it to be one of the smaller cities in Japan. It was kind of like Konoha with all of the tough people walking around that you could bump into around any given corner, only it was the wild, wild west between the different factions within the city limits. No real camaraderie in important times like back home because there were rarely any times that important. Uzumaki? Edge said upon seeing him, "What the hell's going on out here?" Naruto growled at the eraser-headed boy and shook a fist at him. "You threw a knife at me and you don't even know what this is about. You've got problems." Edge grabbed his collar and adjusted his uniform, smirking at Naruto with his tongue hanging out to the side manically. "I owed you anyway." "Whatever," Naruto said before pointing at the helmeted biker. "This asshole started chasing me down on that stupid thing. I don't want to fight you guys, so just let me deal with Kamen Rider over here since he won't let me leave. I'll be out of your face in a minute, you talk too much." "Shut up," the biker said, still standing in a trained fighting stance and faking a man's voice, not to Naruto's knowledge, or better yet, keep on talking. "I'll shut you up myself." Daigo looked between Naruto and the biker before stopping on the biker. "Akira, what are you doing picking a fight with Uzumaki? I've told you about going around with your own little vendettas because of me. I can handle myself, but Daigo and I..." The biker Akira tried to argue back. "He keeps on messing up your gang and hurting you guys. Edge and Gon are my friends too." "What about them?" "Alright, listen up." An impatient Naruto barked, walking up to Akira directly to face the helmet and pointing in its face. "I don't start these fights, so if you really want a piece of me you can dash." Naruto poked Akira in the chest indignantly, but upon doing so felt it to be squishier than he expected a man's chest to be. He repeated the action several more times in confusion before putting his hands directly on Akira's chest. "This doesn't feel right. Uzumaki, get your hands off of my little sister," Daigo bellowed at Naruto. Edge and Gon stepped back as this was quite uncharacteristic of him. He was usually very calm, the calmest amongst them. Apparently Akira was his limit. "Sister?" Naruto repeated questioningly. "No way. If it looks like a guy, talks like a guy, fights like a guy dash, feels like a guy?" Edge cut in, trying to hold back some laughter. Not getting the joke, Naruto shook his head while looking at the three gang members. "No, he doesn't feel like a guy, but then again it could be because the biker jacket is super soft. It's good, maybe I should get one." "Where'd you dash?" Naruto was about to ask Akira where he got the jacket but looked to see that Akira had taken his helmet off. And Akira indeed was not a he. Akira was a she with shoulder-length brown hair and a gentle-looking face that was twisted in pure embarrassment right at that moment. "You pervert. Akira then smashed a totally unprepared Naruto in the head with her helmet, sending him flying into another set of tables and chairs. Naruto picked himself out of the pile of patio furniture with a nasty cut bleeding down from his hairline. Ow! Daigo kicked one of the knocked askew chairs out of the way and started walking towards Naruto with Gon following and Edge doing the same, only with more satisfaction. I can't let this stand, Uzumaki. You cannot violate my little sister like that. Even Akira started walking towards him. Even though she was now more silent and reserved without the helmet, she still had a burning aura of anger around her. Unforgivable kid. And then Akira's motorcycle flew through the air in projectile style and hit Gon and Edge, knocking them for quite a loop to say the very least. Daigo and Akira's jaws dropped while Naruto just looked on in complete amazement. Holy crap! Who threw a motorcycle? And with that he found himself hoisted up to his feet from behind by Sakura and another girl with shoulder-length black hair that he didn't know, but she was wearing a red warm-up jacket and red warm-up pants for the volleyball team of her school, which wasn't Ghetto High, nor was it Naruto and Sakura's school, thanks. Who are you, by the way? My name's Natsu. The new girl that stood